Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for coming along this evening. I would just like to welcome you all to the Scrutiny panel meeting for this evening. There are no practice evacuations planned for this evening, but if an alarm does sound, please evacuate the town hall by going down the main staircase or the back staircase to the High Street, whichever's nearest, whichever's appropriate, to the car park behind the town hall in St Runwald Street. The Council audio records all of its meetings and they will be published on the Council's website. Toilets are available on each floor. Discreet use of mobile phones is tolerated, but please set them to silent and do not use camera, flash or voice functions. Please use the microphones at all times. That goes for visiting speakers as well as councillors. And I'm Councillor Beverly Davies. I'm chairman of this panel. And introductions, please, from my right. Thank you.
Good evening. Marcus Harrington, West Burgolt and 8 Ash Green Ward.
And Lee Hardy, Christchurch Ward.
Patricia Moore, West Mersey Ward.
Mike Lilly, East Donlan Ward, substituting for Councillor Pearson, unless he makes a last-minute stash from America. I'm still hoping.
Councillor Julie Young, St Andrews Ward.
Nick Cope, Christchurch Ward.
Mike Hogg, St Anne's.
Jo Hayes, Castle Ward, substituting for Councillor Peter Higgins.
Jonathan Baker, Democratic Services Officer.
Pam Donnelly, Executive Director.
Thank you very much, and that's dealt with the substitutions as well. There are no urgent items. Declarations of interest. I have to declare that I am currently the Vice Chairman of Colchester CVS, and I'm also employed by the Rural Community Council of Essex. Both of those appear on the agenda later on. Any more declarations of interest? No, just me then. Oh dear. Okay, on to item 5, to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on 21st of July. I've got a couple of items here. Page 10, I'm not sure it was me that requested further information on the town walls repair project. It may have been, but I can't remember asking that question. If you want to check that one. On page 12 at the top, when I was asking about UK Treasury bonds and gilts, I actually asked whether we had lent to other or considered lending to other authorities, not borrowing from, because I was aware that we are holding reserves, and therefore that should be reflected in the response as well. Page 13, the bullet points down the bottom of the page. The question that I actually asked was, is there a possibility that CBH could look after the Disabled Facilities Grant? Because I thought that would be helping both out on the situation. And also Councillor Hogg requested a ward-by-ward breakdown on the tenancy audits. I don't think we've seen that one yet, have we?
Sorry, Madam Chairman, that hasn't appeared on my email system.
Thanks. Anyone else got any Councillor Cope?
Just going back to page 10, my request for local government ongoing funding figures. Can we just confirm that action is being taken on that?
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Hardy.
On page 14, I've already been in contact with Mr Baker. I asked the question, have any measures been put in place to ensure that newly refurbished items are not removed from properties and recited elsewhere? Not the question that actually appears here. If you could change it, that would be good.
Thank you. Apart from those couple of items, is everyone who was present at the last meeting happy that they reflect? Councillor Hogg?
Just to say on page 14, I'm still waiting for a response with regards to fencing, which I did raise. I'm still waiting for that to come through. I'm sure that it will do eventually.
Thank you. Yes, that'll be chased. Any more items on the minutes, or can they be with those relevant changes? I'm sure they'll come back to the next meeting then, won't they? Okay, on to item 6. Have your say. Have Andy Hamilton, who would like to come and talk to us. Mr. Hamilton, please. Right, Mr. Hamilton, you have 3 minutes. The bell will sound after 2. I'm sure you're au fait with the workings. Thank you.
I wish to discuss the notorious Lexon sex club known as Mingles. I have operated a silent protest outside this sordid business for a year now. Due to the threats of physical assault, I have discouraged others from joining the protest. I do not take pictures of the sad people who visit this club, nor do I gesture or engage in verbal discussion. It is a silent protest. The club owners have failed in their legal threats and prefer confrontation. It was astonishing to see the sex club get permanent planning permission by a council staff decision on March the 27th. I have reviewed my planning objections that were submitted within the consultation period, and it's clear they were sufficient to reject the application. I have kept the council regularly informed by email of the appalling behaviour of the applicant and continued planning breaches. Despite the applicants' claim of no police attendance, they have become a regular feature. On March the 14th, 2 weeks before permanent planning permission was granted, I was soaked by a large container of liquid forcibly directed at me. A week later, my electric bicycle ceased to work and is still dead. Yet no objection from either the council or police was raised, and the application was not referred to the planning committee. The verbal abuse and physical intimidation has continued to date. Recently, a poster has been put in a Mingles car labelling me a pervert. The last assault was on 8th of August when I was forcibly pushed over. I understand my assailant is still resisting a police caution. I was phoned in March by an ITV daytime programme to get me on their show to discuss swingers clubs. One resident complained to me that the sex club is making it difficult to sell his property. The owner of the tyre business next door to the sex club has sold the freehold for a low price despite the present 8% yield from the tenant. Apparently, rumours of a sex shop were the last straw. The police have acted professionally and impartially in executing their duties. However, the shame this council faces for bringing this evil, disgusting trade into Lexton will only end when you close down the sex club.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Hamilton. However, we are not the licensing committee, and there's nothing really that we can do here. But thank you for your comments.
Being the planning committee, not the licensing committee.
Yeah, we're not the planning committee either. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Okay, on to the... there are no decisions taken under special urgency, no referred items. Do we have any items requested by members of the panel and other members under either 10A or 10B? No. On to the work programme, which is on page 17. I have been talking to Karen Turnbull, who looks after the Purple Flag accreditation. There is an evening out, if you can call it that, on the 5th of September. If I'm assuming I'm allowed to share this. If any of the members of the panel would like to come along, because this is something that we were going to cover under the Crime and Disorder Committee in September. However, it comes a little too close, really, to the event, and also Karen's away. So I would quite like to bring that item to scrutiny in October. We haven't at the moment got a meeting in October, and there is plenty of room there to slot one in and look at the Purple Flag accreditation, because I think it could be quite an interesting item. We can take a look back over the years and see how things have progressed or otherwise, and see exactly where we are. Also, I believe Councillor Pearson brought up the air quality item, and I think that that is being worked on, I think, at the moment, isn't it? As is the portfolio holder scrutiny. I think I may have seen an email from Jonathan today, but unfortunately I've been working today, so I haven't really been able to look at it properly. That, I've no doubt, is something we can look at the next time. But did anyone else have any items for the work programme? Anything burning people want to bring along? OK, that's fine. On to the page 27, the financial monitoring report. This is looking at the first 3 months of 2015-16, and we've got Mr. Plummer and Councillor Corey. Welcome.
Hello, good evening. Right, if I, we have 2 reports here tonight, which are your first 2 reviews by the budget position. So it's looking at a revenue budget position and capital programme. So the first report concerns revenue budget. And it looks at general funds and housing revenue accounts as well. I'll just briefly highlight a few of the key points. And I suppose the first thing to say is to emphasise it's the first review, it's early in the year. We will come back to you at the half-year point and at 9 months as well. So this is, again, early stages, of a few early issues to highlight. So in terms of actually revenue budget, the report set out in section 4 where we are so far for the first quarter of the year. So it's highlighting a couple of areas which I just want to mention in particular. First one is regarding car park income, which is one I think that when I reported the outturn position for last year, I highlighted that as part of setting the budget for 15-16, we did reduce the expected income target down for car parking income. That was based on some work, such consultants' independent work done looking at forecast car park usage after Park and Ride came in. It was a bit of work funded by ourselves and Essex County Council as well. Yes, on the basis of that, we reduced the budget down by about 300,000. What we're actually seeing happening regarding car park income is that actually we're not seeing really any reduction at all in our car park income. Therefore, where we reduce the budget, it looks like we will therefore be about £400,000 better off at the end of the year. Clearly, that position could change. But it was done on the basis when the budget was set, based on looking at potential impact on our car parking revenue of Park and Ride coming in. So that's probably the key item within the paper. Also to highlight, I suppose another example where when the budget for 15-16 was set, we anticipated an increase in planning income. So we put an extra £250,000 worth of income in the budget regarding planning, and actually that is actually on track to be achieved as well. So highlight that. And generally speaking, as much income to the council, such as sport and leisure, for example, bereavement services as well, again, all on track to be delivered, and we closely monitor all those areas. In terms of expenditure so far, there are some underspends at the moment, but again, I just want to emphasise it's the first quarter. And then section 5, which is the bit which we would normally focus on, which is the outturn forecast. So basically, where do we think we're going to be at the end of the year? This highlights 5.1 that at the moment forecasting a potential net underspend of about 552,000, which is principally regarding car park income, as I've mentioned already, that we're expecting to see about extra £400,000 worth of car park income. We're forecasting a slight increase regarding interest earnings. And when the budget was set, there was an assumption regarding pay award. The actual pay award agreed was less than had been allowed for us in the budget. Therefore, we have a saving across the board regarding pay as well. So that's the general fund position. Probably just to add, I say it's the first quarter. we'll be reviewing it again at the half-year stage, and it will be for the Cabinet to consider whether to actually reallocate some of that funding if that position continues. So we'll look at the half-year position. In terms of housing revenue account, at the moment, again, the forecast is broadly on budget. I don't think there's too many items that I would flag up really at this stage. And again, at 6.4, as far as it highlights, if there is actually any underspend, then our approach has been just to use any underspends to support a capital programme on housing side, which means we don't have to borrow so much to support the housing capital programme. But obviously, the report sets out some detail regarding the forecast variances for the year, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Chair, can I just say that I haven't got much more to add, as it's only a quarterly report and it's very much operational, and Sean's covered that all. But there was just one point from Councillor Cope early on about looking at the finances over previous years, looking at grants that we've had come in. That was something asked of me last time round, so I instructed Sean and other officers to look into that. And I know he's reported back to you at the Chairman's briefing that they have got that work in a format, and they're going to add in not just the grant but the new homes bonus, and do it in a way that's very much a whole piece of work that can be analysed by the Scrutiny Committee. And I think that's a really important piece of work, and I'm glad that Sean has done that on top of continuing to report every quarter on this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
I just wanted to tease out a bit more on the parking income. Clearly, the anticipation was that there'd be a drop in revenue income as a result of park and ride. The first period of operation was £1 a journey, I think, which is a little bit worrying considering people didn't take up that opportunity at the initial stages, and then, of course, the cost has increased. I wondered if, in collaboration with the county, whether there is any surveying being done of passengers to understand whether the people using the service are people who would have taken their cars into town, or whether they're actually maybe free bus passengers that would have used other services, because I think that's what we will need to understand in terms of our budgeting going forward, about where those passengers are coming from and whether we will get that revenue in the future or not.
I suppose, obviously, we're going park and rides, obviously operated by Essex County Council. So, in terms of any information regarding any surveys that they have done or plan to do, I'm not aware of any information. Certainly, I accept the point that understanding, if you like, sort of who is using park and ride, and if they are people who came to our car parks, would be sort of helpful. I think probably, though, one of the things we will obviously have, so after, for example, 6 months of the year, we'll have actually figures regarding our car park usage, so we will know, what is happening in our car parks. For the first quarter, it seems that there's not been too great an impact, and that's the bit for us, obviously. But I accept that will probably be helpful to understand. I can take that back to officers who obviously meet regarding county on a regular basis, if there is some information, and I'm sure there is, because I would imagine county must be getting that information, and accept it would be very helpful. So I'll follow that up, but I haven't got that to hand.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions from around the table? Councillor Hayes.
I noticed that there seemed to be a good result from the sports and leisure income, and I wondered whether you could comment and explain what's the reason for that, or the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, certainly as far as sport and leisure is concerned, the actual budget represents the increase in income and reductions in expenditure, which were as a result of the Chief Fundamental Service Review that took place about 3 or 4 years ago, when there was a review, which obviously resulted in, certainly regarding investment into the Chief facility. so far in those years, we are delivering those actually cost reductions and the income. In terms of the actual target so far, again, I haven't got the detail behind the overall headline figures, but the income figure, as I say, is in line with our target. And actually, if there are any reductions in certain areas, they're finding matching reductions in spend. So I think it's that the point I probably emphasise is that the savings and the income that were included in the review are being delivered, and that's what we're seeing across the board.
Just to answer from a more sort of strategic point as well, we know that with the changes the FSR at the Leisure World site, for example, we are actually seeing income increase there, and we are actually bringing in income, we are in surplus in a sense. If you take away recharges, we are bringing in more money than we are putting into Leisure World. So we've actually really turned that around. That's a real positive in the Colchester sort of assets that we have, and we're doing a really good job there, and we hope to keep that as a public facility that we can put more into to make it even more of an asset for people of Colchester, for leisure, for well-being, and actually for sort of Aqua Springs as well. Make it something that attracts people to come to Colchester.
Thank you. Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In a similar line to Councillor Hayes, actually, the other service is bereavement services that seems to be doing. I mean, you never like to think of making money out of this unfortunate service, but obviously it's a very important one to provide. And briefly looking through these figures, there are another couple that just struck me on page 39, actually, both of them. The redundancy cost. There was an overspend of 44,000 in governance. It says most of that was a one-off redundancy cost. Is most of that 44,000 a single redundancy payoff, or how is that accrued? That figure just struck me. I wondered about that. And the other comment, really, obviously the removal of the spare room subsidy was a controversial matter when it came through. And we heard at last scrutiny panel meeting how CBH had been implementing this policy very effectively, actually. And we asked Greg Falvey at the time about the effect on bed and breakfast, because people have been moved from bed and breakfast into more suitable council accommodation, which is very much to their benefit. And here we can see an underspend on the forecast of bed and breakfast of £30,000. And is that link as direct as that? Is that a fair comment to make? Is that why we're seeing that underspend in largely bed and breakfast?
Just on the bereavement services, as a former member of the trading board, I know that there was a lot of really good work done there, and that's a service that has now been projecting income coming in, so income beyond the expenditure. So that is a service that through the trading board and through that sort of extended arm of our sort of business arm, we are actually now producing a good income there. And with, in terms of the B&B, Sean can answer more of the detail, but that's through our preventative work, actually working with people, and the turnaround in actually moving people from different houses, that turnaround has been reduced dramatically. So that immediate cost of bed and breakfast is much lower than before, but Sean may be able to give more detail on that.
Okay. First of all, the question regarding governance and the overspend, including redundancy costs. The 44,000 shown there. There is not regarding entirely redundancy costs. I'd need to check whether there was. I believe it probably was one individual, but I would need to confirm that. But that overspend is not all regarding that, as well as it highlights. It's regarding actually salary costs across the board in that particular area. If that is something you wanted, I can find that, but I haven't got that information to hand, I'm afraid. Obviously, the bereavement part, and as Corey's explained. And in terms of bed and breakfast, as I say, it highlights there a forecast underspend of actually £30,000. And again, certainly my understanding of this is that it is partly regarding preventative work. So again, it's partly trying to avoid the situation of incurring B&B costs, and for alternative sort of approaches to helping out regarding homelessness situation. It's clearly quite a difficult one to estimate any budget in any particular year. But it's obviously clearly a good sign if we're keeping our costs within budget, and at the moment forecasting to be slightly underspent as well. So.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions? No comments. We've been asked to consider the financial performance of the General Fund Services and the HRA in the first 3 months, which I think we've done. Everyone happy with that? Great, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Plummer. Straight on now to the Capital Expenditure Monitor, 2015-16.
Okay, thank you very much. As I say, second report, which is the first quarter, as a review of this one's on the capital programme, so it also includes the housing capital programme as well. The overall position on the programme is set out at the top of page 44. Showing spend in the first quarter of about £2.6 million. Certainly in year we do find the first quarter spend tends to be sort of lower, and some of the spend is more predicted to be later on in the year, so we will certainly see that increasing as the year goes through. So 1 or 2 points I just wanted to highlight where we've altered the report slightly here, and also let's open it up to if there are other areas of information you'd like to see in this report in the future as well, really. One item, 3.4 in the report here, is that we've actually set out all the changes toward the capital programme, because they're always shown within the report, but we've specifically highlighted them. And these are predominantly changes where the council has either received extra grants or brought extra funding in, so you can see how the programme's increased, or where contributions have already been agreed in other budgets. So just showing how the capital programme has changed, and that's set out at 3.4. We've also provided a bit of information within the report in Appendix B, just where, for like our top few schemes, the highest programme schemes, just providing a bit of commentary about those schemes, because we used to provide commentary on all the programme, and I think the panel agreed we wouldn't include all of it anymore, but we just wanted to provide a bit more information on some of those higher value schemes for you there as well. Apart from that, the overall message on the programme is that we've got no forecast surplus or shortfall. As I say, it's early days yet. There are some schemes which are flagged as at this stage actually amber. They're set out in Appendix C, and I think probably one thing again we'll try to include in future reports is a bit of information just so you're clear on why we're calling it amber at the moment, so that it's actually clear. But on some of those examples there, it's where we're waiting on some more information so that, to finalise forecasts. I don't think there's actually areas there that are being shown because there's a potential forecast overspend, for example, or like a major problem. So they are amber, and it's just where we're having to look at it just to make certain we know up to date on the forecasts. Again, happy to try to take. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm happy to try to answer any questions as well.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from round the table, please? Councillor Harrington.
Well, I'll just ask one, if you don't mind, then, Madam Chair, about the Garrison Gym. This has come to scrutiny several times before, and it seems that progress in this regard is slow. And I know it's all tied up with an insurance claim. Is there any progress that can be reported on in this regard, and are we close to a resolution there?
Yes, and someone behind me, Councillor Hazel, knows a bit more about that as well. She wanted to update me that the church group that's going into the gym was a bit worried about not having enough information, but that has been released. I have made the decision to spend the money to bring that up to after the insurance, after the works that needed to be done to bring it back up to scratch, to be a building that can be used by the church group as portfolio holder, was one of my first decisions that I made to bring that up to standard. So that is being done, and contractors have been sort of, I think, agreed to carry out that work now. So it's now in the hands of the contractors to be done, and we are ensuring that ward councillors and those involved are as up to date as possible on that one. But it is positive, it's moving forward, and it's a job being done.
Okay, thanks, that's good to hear.
Thank you. I like to think that we can possibly take a little of the credit there for keeping it up in front of everyone's. Councillor Hardy.
On page 49, you've got under services that East Colchester Enabling Fund is going to get a little bit of money. Who's enabling what? Can you tell us anything about this?
I'm not too sure I'm going to be able to give you a very specific answer to that. I mean, again, this is partly recognising where within the capital programme there were allocations to a number of schemes, and as part of the revolving investment fund, there's been some reallocation of money aside. So this is partly linked into projects in that area. So again, it's recognising that with a number of these regeneration schemes, either in the north of Colchester or within the town or East Colchester, there are funds required. We've got pre-development work. Enabling works is just recognising that it may not be us doing some of the things, but we may need to pump prime certain work. So I'm not giving you a specific answer because I haven't got it. It's just recognising that with these projects there will always be funding, that the authority can put on to actually progress these various schemes. So I'm not too sure how much specific detail there will be, because this is recognising that there's funds that will be allocated as they're required. But I can't say, I'm sorry, I haven't got any more information than that. That's something you would like, I can take that back to the officers and get a response to you. Sorry.
Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. Surface water flooding at Haven Road says we're waiting for Angler Water to complete their works. Well, I think we've been waiting for that for the last 20 years. But any update on that? Because it is a nuisance down there at times.
Just bear with me one moment. I will just check to see whether I have got any further update on that scheme. I believe the detail, the position shown in the report is probably the up-to-date information that we had. As you say, it's recognising that is one that has been there for a while. The comments that I've got in terms of the overall, the overall programme is the comment that I've got within the report. Again, I hate to keep saying this, but if that's something you would like me to take away, I'll go direct to the officer, and I can ask someone to email you specifically about it. If that's something you like, some more information.
I think that'd be good. Thank you very much. And that's to all the committee.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Hayes.
As Ward Councillor for Castle Ward, I'm very interested in the progress of the Creative Business Hub, and I wondered if you had any update on progress, as obviously I'm very keen to see the regeneration of that part of town continue.
I'm not sure actually this is quite the right place though. We're looking at the finances here. This is not an update on the regeneration as such. I don't know if Councillor Corey has anything to add.
Not really, no. I think it's a testament to how good Sean is that everyone thinks he can answer everything for the council, which we seem to have quite often. I try and provide as many answers as I can as well. With this, we are obviously investing in the creative businesses, and we are trying to ensure that is going to move forward as quickly as possible. I can't give any further update. Thank you.
Thank you. I suggest that a question is probably better to go to the regeneration team. Thank you. Do we have any more questions or comments on this particular item, the capital expenditure monitor? Nope. Okay, well, we've been invited to review the level of capital spending during the first quarter and the forecast for future years, which I believe is reviewed. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Plummer. Now, the next item on the agenda is First Sight. However, there is a board meeting that is going on in an adjoining room, and we hadn't expected to reach this point until about 7:30. So we are running a little bit, a little bit forward. I was expecting to be here for a long time. Yes. So what I would like to do is go forward to item 15 and invite Mr. Sterling up to look at the year-end 2014-15 performance report, including progress on strategic plan, action plan. Thank you.
I thought I was going to have a very long wait before I started tonight. So, I'll just talk very briefly to the paper because it's quite long and I won't go through...
Excuse me a second. Mr Hamilton, would you like to sit down, please? We will be looking at First Sight. It's just that we are a lot earlier in the agenda than we actually thought we would be. So it will be coming up. Please just be patient with us. Thank you, Mr
So I thought I'd just pull out some highlights and then try to respond to questions. Just in terms of process, this comes to you twice a year. So twice a year you get the set of key performance indicators which measure the business, the efficiency of the business operation of the council, and also then progress against our strategic plan, action plan, which tries to capture progress against the ambitions in the strategic plan. So you've effectively got two sets of performance data here. The first is the end of year 14-15 performance indicators. Seems like a long time ago that 14-15 ended, but it obviously takes a while to be gathered and go through the machine. And then the second report you've got is the final strategic plan, action plan performance report, because it's the end of that particular strategic plan. So just to summarise the key indicator set, there are 14 targets overall, of which 11 were green, 3 were red. So 11 were achieved, 3 were missed. I'm assuming you probably want me to dwell on the reds rather than the greens in my comments, much as I'd like to dwell on the greens. But just to explain what the reds are, though I'm sure you've spotted them, for the first time in a long time, one of the reds is the indicator K1H1, which is additional homes provided. And as the narrative shows you there, we actually did better than any other authority in Essex. We delivered 721 homes in 2014-15, but that was short of the very ambitious target we'd set ourselves. And you can see under all the indicators we proposed new targets for the coming year. The second red was, again, I think for the first time that I can remember, the household waste recycling target. The actual amount of recycling we collected went up. So a high amount of recycling is good for this indicator, whereas the waste target, a low amount, is good. The amount we collected of recycling went up from last year, but we'd upped our target from last year, upped our ambition, and we fell short of achieving the target. It looked as though for the first 3 quarters of the year we were actually on track, and then we had a dip in the final quarter of the year, particularly a dip in green waste collection, which perhaps if any of you are gardeners, you might be able to predict in January, February, March that there would be less green waste to collect. But also the service is reporting a really big fall-off in newspaper and magazine recycling, which might owe itself more to the amount of newspapers actually being bought these days. And then the third red is for the staff sickness target, which is the last of the indicators. We had a target to have no more days lost per full-time equivalent staff member than 7.5 days. Obviously, most members of staff have far fewer days than that, but the average at the end of the year was 8.84 days, which includes a lot of very long-term sick as well as short-term days. And you can see in the narrative there, we're trying to take a twin-track approach really to that, which is, on the one hand, some staff well-being measures, but also taking a firmer line with really persistent cases and using our ill health capability process a bit more vigorously. So those are the reds in the performance report. And then in the strategic plan, as I've said many times, there are no greens or reds, but this tries to capture some of the work that's been done to achieve the targets. So I think I'll stop talking there.
Thank you very much. Do we have any initial questions? Councillor Cope.
Yeah, it seems a rather obvious question. Going back to the red for the net additional homes provided, to what extent is it our responsibility if developers aren't building that many houses?
I think, well, we have an enabling role here, don't we? So the way we help homes being built is that we'll bring forward sites, we'll make sure that there are sufficient sites with the appropriate zoning in our local plan, and to make it possible. But of course, almost all of the sites are developed by private developers, and they'll make their own decisions about when they want to build, what the market can bear at any time. So we set ourselves the target in terms of enabling development, but you're absolutely right, it's not in our gift. We can create the conditions for those homes to be built, and we create the condition for more homes to be built than in any other district. But if a developer decides to delay completion on a development, then that's their decision.
That covers it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I'm looking on page 70 again. There's a commuted sum to provide affordable homes off-site in lieu of on-site for these two sites. £194,260. What does that? How many houses does that produce? What's that money actually being spent on? Because it looks like £6,000 a house, which seems to be either too little for building a house or rather a lot if it's for something else.
Sorry, what that table tries to capture is that when we seek planning gain for new homes or for affordable homes within a development, there's two ways you can do it. Our normal preferred approach is to get the developer to build affordable homes, and then they'll be looked after normally by a housing association. Where that's not possible because of some peculiar aspect of the site, we would take a commuted sum instead, and that would be a contribution towards providing homes elsewhere, presumably. So it may not. That may go into a larger pot, an accumulation of commuted sums.
Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to say how pleased I am, first of all, the Council is toughening up its approach actually to long-term sickness, because I've argued that in this panel a number of times before, and there are times when the most correct and fair thing to do in certain types of long-term sickness is dismissal. So that's good. Here's my question on W2 on page 90. You did indeed mention garden waste, and certain times of the year there's less of it. Does dealing with garden waste and what happens to it next, when after it's collected, which I'm not sure about, does that create a profit for the council, or is there a cost to us in dealing with it?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to check that and come back to you.
Thank you. That was going to lead to a supplementary, actually, which is that if it does create a profit, I don't know, is it turned into compost or something that might have some value in itself? I'm getting some noddings of heads over there, but I don't know. I'm genuinely asking because I don't know. The question I would perhaps put to Councillor Young is, at certain times of the year, 8 sacks can be collected, and at other times, only 4. If it is that can be turned into a profit, why don't you collect 8 sacks year-round instead of 8 sacks some of the time and only 4 for the rest of the year?
I think there's a limit on the number of sacks that can be collected from each individual household. There certainly was. It was 4. And I think it is to do with resources. If you have that many sacks out in the summer, we have only a certain amount of operatives, and they wouldn't be able to complete the round in the time they have allocated. So that is why. On the question of the surplus, I know we make some money. Whether it covers the cost of the service, I don't know, and Matt will check that for you.
I still don't understand then why your operatives can deal with 8 sacks in the winter but only 4 in the summer.
Well, they can't. They can only deal with 4 sacks all the year round because that's all anybody is allowed to put out.
I don't think that's right. I know I put out 8. It seems to me I put out 8 in the winter.
It used to be 4 per household. That might have changed. It's not my portfolio. But certainly then it became unlimited. I thought we'd put a limit back on it. But we'll check that for you.
Perhaps if you could check that, because it's my recollection of...
Councillor Graham's portfolio.
Okay.
But,
no, I mean, what I do in my home is...
Because people were taking the mickey, to be honest, and were putting out dozens of garden waste sacks, those with huge gardens. And it just wasn't... It just wasn't fair on our operatives to deal with that. So I thought we'd put the limit back on. It was 4 when we started. It might be more than that now.
Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. And I should have declared a non-pecuniary interest at the start as a board member of Colchester Borough Homes, because it keeps cropping up all the time. This is a question about affordable housing. As a member of the Planning Committee, and there's a few other people here tonight, we keep hearing huge firms saying they cannot contribute or build affordable houses any longer. Is your target of just 200 too high with the way things are going and the new plans for housing that are coming in? Are we going to have any affordable houses built at all? Because they'll keep leaving poverty, but I've yet to see a huge building firm go bust.
Well, 2 things to say on that, really. I mean, the first thing is, of course, when we take planning gains, such as affordable homes, we're not allowed to make a development unviable. So we have to seek... we have to try to achieve our target for affordable homes without scuppering the development. But this proposed target of 200 homes is in the views of the people who know more about this than I do, so our housing planning experts. That's achievable. But of course, it depends on private developers coming forward with sites.
Yeah, I ought to declare an interest as chair of Carl Housing, but I think probably these figures were put together before all of the government's announcements on housing came out, and they might have to be adjusted. At the time that this report was written, these figures were seen to be accurate and a good forecast. But I know Councillor Bourne has told me that there's all housing associations and Colchester Borough Homes and the council are doing a lot of financial remodelling around, well, the reductions in rent, the right to buy legislation for housing association properties that has got to be paid for by the council, apparently. So all that is being worked through the system, and we might have to come back to you with an adjusted figure on that once we get the detail of all what the government is planning. I do agree with Councillor Lilly about developers, and they often say that schemes and sites are unviable to have any affordable housing, and that doesn't always prove to be the case.
Thank you. Councillor Hayes.
So I just wanted to go back to the question of bags of compost in winter and summer. I believe that, could I phrase this as a question, could the reason be that in winter, because vegetation isn't growing, fewer households are putting out stuff, so therefore each household can have more stuff, because from experience it shows that the operatives and the lorries actually will have room?
That's entirely feasible. Actually, there's 2 ways I could see it. You either up the amount when you know people have got a lot of quantity, but you have temporary staff to help you with that. Or, as you say, when the quantities are lower, you allow for more. But both come down to a resource issue, because however many people you field on the lorries obviously costs us. So you have to strike that balance. But I will find the answer to that and write to you, as they say.
Thank you. I'm just going to zip in there, if I may, in front of Councillor Hardy. I do apologise. I would just like to ask, if I may, what's the current status of the consultation that's mentioned on page 69 on the new waste strategy? We've been waiting for the consultation and survey to go public, and our residents have been waiting for it, and we haven't seen it. Any knowledge on that?
Yeah, the waste strategy has been paused and is being worked on. We've got a new portfolio holder, as you know. He's taken it on board and spoken to the new chair of the Task and Finish group. The strategy is due to come to Cabinet in January, and so you will get to scrutinise it before that, but it's being worked on, and the head of service has gone away taking comments from a meeting we had this week, only yesterday I think, to do more work on it, and it will go to Cabinet in October, ready for publication in January, and that's the timetable we're working to, and the chair of the Task and Finish group has been informed of that, but it will have to be fitted into your timetable as well, of course.
So will the consultation have been done then, or is the strategy to inform the consultation, which will come first?
I think the consultation will come before the strategy, because actually that will inform the strategy, so that's the way it will work.
Thank you. Councillor Hardy.
I wonder if we could go to page 84, where you've got supporting tourism, heritage and the arts. The first section there is all to do with percentages, but not to do with actual numbers. And they cover the times since 1993, that's 22 years ago. I wonder if it's possible to have some figures. I had hoped that we would have seen some figures for 14-15, being April, I understand it, being the end of the time that they should be. So we're 4 months behind now. I'd like to know how many tourists there actually were in Colchester in 14-15, or at least the year before that. You know, what do we have to put our fingers on?
Yeah, I can certainly check that. I think the reason there's a lag is because there is actually a lag in that data. I think that it comes to us quite late. It tends to be worked on calendar years rather than financial years.
But, you know, even if we go back to year before last, what are the figures?
Yeah, so we've got 2013 figures in here, which will be the last full calendar year before 14-15.
Right.
And I think that's the lag. They do them in calendar years, and then we tend to get them a bit late. So they give you the 2013 figures in here, although I appreciate that now feels quite a long time ago. And then they try to give you the longitudinal. But I can certainly ask if there's any early indications.
Yeah, Karen Turnbull will know that, but these aren't our figures. These are figures that are annual figures that every local authority gets are on the same reporting timetable. So we may have some early indications, but they won't be the verified figures. You'll get that this time next year.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at page 80, particularly relating to NEAT figures, and I note the comment there that a group has been disbanded, the Colchester NEAT group. I don't know who Colchester Works are, so I'd like to know who they are. And there's a number of good initiatives that I know work well, including the work clubs that work successfully in St Andrews Ward. But the numbers of NEETs remain stubbornly high, although there's a slight decrease across the county in average NEET figures. But I think if there's anything we can do to bolster the chances of young people getting into work or training, we ought to be taking that opportunity. And nationally there was a call for care leavers to be considered for some protected places in terms of apprenticeship places. And the research I've done suggests that a number of apprenticeship places get taken by much older people. So, I wonder if we could sort of do a bit more work on that area.
Just to say, in amongst that, you were asking about Colchester Works. I think, for those of you with very long memories, I think this is the sort of successor of something like Colicon. So it brings together people with an interest in skills provision, but also places like Signpost, so agencies helping with the unemployed. And it's probably, in the absence of the NEAT group, it's probably our best hope of partnership working in this area.
Thank you. Councillor Harrington.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. On page 72, the report speaks of the rise in fixed penalty notices for litter, specifically cigarette butts. Can you tell me how many FPNs have been issued for littering with cigarette butts?
Yeah, I checked the figures for this for 14-15. So FPNs, this is for the period April 14 to last day of March 15. We had 43 FPNs for littering, of which 3 were cancelled, but all the remaining were paid. Just out of interest, 10 went to court, but resulted in them being paid. Had 16 FPNs issued for dog fouling, of which 3 went to court, but all were paid. And then we had 3 for people not having the correct waste documents, of which 1 was cancelled, 2 went to court, but those 2 were paid.
Thank you. That's encouraging. Yet what's distressing at the same time, and actually staggered me, was to see on page 71 that when you collected litter, 68% of it was smoking paraphernalia, presumably butts and packets and what have you. As a non-smoker, I do find that, I'll choose my words carefully, but not very appealing. And I just wonder, here we are as a scrutiny panel, we're being asked to assess how ambitious some of this is, and we read at the bottom of page 72 that a light touch has been applied to this sort of thing. I wonder if there's room, even though you've given some encouraging figures there of issue of FPNs, to be a little bit more ambitious and firm up on FPNs to try and deal more so with this high percentage of litter that is smoking related. It might be very difficult, it requires a lot of will and training, I'm sure, but I just wonder if there's room there for a little more ambition.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Councillor Harrison, I think you're getting confused. The light touch refers to the purple flag reassessment. It doesn't apply to the attitude we take to littering, which is a very zero tolerance approach. It's not a light touch to litter and to smoking related litter or any sort of litter. What you're reading there at the bottom of page 72 is the reassessment by the purple flag accreditation team, not to the attitude we take to littering.
All right, I appreciate that difference and thank you very much, but from the car park to the front door of this town hall tonight, if you were to count the number of cigarette butts, it's dozens. That is not consistent with the zero tolerance approach. There is room for a more firm approach to this.
Well, we are taking a very firm approach. We have to be on hand to witness the people doing it, and we could employ more zone wardens. We could employ more litter officers. But it's education that we need to concentrate on as well, because it's not me. I don't smoke and I don't litter. So, and I'm sure it's nobody around this table. Well, what we've got to do is make sure that people realise that it's unacceptable behaviour. And we will continue issuing fixed penalty notices and putting resources into educating the public that this is not acceptable behaviour, because we want Colchester to be the cleanest town in Britain, and we will go on putting resources into that. But it staggers me, the mentality of people who just open their car window and chuck a cigarette butt out, or just chuck it on the... Do they do that at home? I mean, what do their homes look like? I mean, it isn't good enough, and we will continue to take a tough stance against these perpetrators.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate those comments.
On that subject, I reported 3 separate incidences where people threw litter out of car windows, and whilst I did give the various statements to the zone wardens, and not a single one of them was taken up. So that was a little bit disappointing. You've given us the figures for 2015-16. No, you haven't. You've given them for 2014-15. That would be really clever. Have you got a similar figure for 2013-14 for the FPNs that have been distributed?
I only have the numbers for the last full year with me, but I can certainly get them for the previous year.
That'd be useful, thanks. So a bit of a... to see how it's changed. Councillor Hardy.
Thank you. Could we turn to page 85, please? Where you're talking about, or we're talking about, bringing investment to the borough. And I understand the plan is that there will be in excess of 2 million. And so far you've got Acoustica and Albia as the people who are putting money into the town. How does that actually marry with the leaflet that has come out for the town centre development that we were all shown, anybody who wanted to take part in one having a look at it, what the plans were, and pretty good it all looked too, and the consultation that came from it, or that is being done at the moment. When it talks here about 3 billion being invested in Colchester and more than 500 million going towards town centre projects, how does that marry with this 2 billion here? Is this not paltry? What's the plan? Where's the vision?
I think the two types of number you're talking about are counting different things. So the number you've got in the leaflet there, I believe, is about overall investment in the borough. So it could be a cinema opening, a hotel opening, anything that anyone is doing. I think the 2 million here is about inward investment into the borough, which will be companies we've helped relocate into the borough. So it's measuring a very specific thing. So they're only counting companies that have moved from somewhere else into the borough, set up shop here. That's £2 million. I think in the leaflet there, that will be counting. It could, for example, I don't know if it does, but it could include W&G's investment in their shop. It could include all the investment businesses are making, whether they were here before or not.
My point is 2 billion actually sufficiently a target to be making for? I would have hoped that it would have been a lot more than that. Are we not? According to this, we are a go-ahead, dynamic, innovative, whatever setup. It doesn't feel like that from this report, from that particular item. Yeah.
Well, I think if you put the two things together, you get the picture of the attempts to make the town more prosperous, because what you have in this report is brand new businesses move into the borough, and then what you have in the other report is the sum of what all the businesses in the borough, long-term and new, are investing. And of course you'd want both to happen. So you'd want your existing businesses to plough money in, but you'd also want to attract some new businesses. And, well, if what you're asking me is would we like more new businesses to come and relocate, the answer is yes. But actually these two companies come in as part of the inward investment is seen as a success story.
Thank you. Councillor Cope.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. If we go back to page 71, the second and third paragraphs about air quality, what's the position on getting the buses to be as clean as possible? Do we ask them from time to time, are your buses as clean as they can be?
We had a very interesting presentation on this subject, actually, at an SM senior management team meeting a few months ago. What was very clear to me was that we have specialist officers in this field who definitely are in liaison with bus companies. They knew the cleanness or not cleanness, if that's a word, of the individual buses. They certainly knew the hotspots of pollution around the borough. And what this is trying to capture is the work they've done together to make some of the worst offending buses, if you like, cleaner. But yeah, we're in regular contact with the bus companies, and of course they're private entities, but trying to apply the pressure we can to get them to put cleaner stock on our roads.
You find them responsive to this pressure?
Well, the bid that went in to improve the 10 buses was a joint bid, so they're absolutely happy to work with us. They have all sorts of commercial pressures, of course, but it's a two-way dialogue. It's not us trying to get a hearing.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
It was just on the smoking point, Chair, really, coming back to that in terms of the litter issue and education. The county got £3.6 million public health cuts to make. Part of that will be on smoking cessation services. So, you know, we do need to look at these issues in the round. And I don't know whether there is something the, Innovation Committee, whatever it's called, can actually look at to see if there's something that can be done to tackle that issue. So it's about education that can be done on a borough level and perhaps some additional specific special bins or something. There might be something that could be thought about in terms of tackling that particular issue. But if the county are withdrawing funding for smoking cessation services, it may actually lead to more people smoking, and it might actually lead to more litter in Colchester. So I think we do need to look at that in the round.
Yeah, I think, Chair, that's a fair point. And recently the Cabinet had a presentation from Mike Gogarty, who's the Director of Public Health at Essex County Council, and Councillor Brown, who is the portfolio holder, and how we can work together, given that they have got to face these cuts. And although there is going to be a financial cut in smoking cessation services, they're hoping to deliver it in such a way that it will still have the desired effect of stopping people smoking. Now, whether that can be... it's good that they're coming and want to work with other agencies such as ourselves to get the messages across about smoking being bad, and we want to reduce the numbers who are smoking and taking it up in the first place. Then it's got to be done. They've got to do more with less, as many of us have. But it's good that that debate has started, that dialogue has opened between us and the County Council's public health team.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you. It's also on smoking. I loathe smoking. I lived for nearly 40 years with a chain smoker until it killed him. The truth is that some people will smoke, and if you ban smoking indoors, we're talking about Colchester as such, if they're banned from smoking indoors, they will smoke outdoors. And what do they do with their cigarette ends? It's no good saying take it home with you. You don't put a hot cigarette butt in your pocket unless you want to go home in flames. If you screw it out on the floor, you then what do you do with it? Of course, people, unless there are proper bins, they are going to throw them down. There's nothing else much they can do with them if they're in the street. I'm not sure that we're being totally realistic about smoking and cigarette ends. I think we have to say, look, some people will smoke. Either we provide proper bins, lots of them, because you're not going to carry a cigarette end for a long time looking for somewhere. It's going to go down. Maybe we just have to bite the bullet and sweep regularly until such time as you can persuade people not to smoke. We've got to deal with the outcome of it, and I think there's a good dose of realism we ought to adopt on this subject.
Yeah, I think there's something in that, but a number of our bins certainly do have the smoking where you could stub them out and put them away. And the health service were giving away at one time the little collecting plastic things that you could take your stubs home in. But, you know, we will continue. There is a more social reason, a number of social reasons that people take up smoking and continue to smoke, and it is an addiction, of course. But the council will still clamp down on it. It's still littering at the end of the day, and if we catch people and we've taken people to court who have objected to, because all they did, in their eyes, was chuck a fag butt down and stamp on it, and they were caught by our zone teams and they refused to pay the fixed penalty notice, so we took them to court and we won. So although I take what you're saying, it is still littering. It wouldn't be acceptable with a sweet wrapper, so it shouldn't be acceptable with a cigarette butt, in my opinion.
May I just follow that up quickly? Yes, a sweet wrapper you can put in your pocket. A cigarette butt, if it's hot, you can't. And that is. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Cope.
It's a parallel issue. Dog fouling, what people do is to put the dog fowl into a plastic bag out on Gosbeck's Field. They then swing it from a tree in a kind of bizarre imitation of a Christmas tree.
In the first like people's ideas.
Yeah, for touche. I congratulate officers on doing a pretty good clean-up, I think, following a few emails. I think we probably need some more dog poo bins, but in terms of human behaviour, local behaviour, I just find it totally bizarre that people do that. It's some kind of dirty protest. We'll put it from the tree so that the next council officer who happens to be chancing by has to pick it up. I don't know what we can do to persuade people not to do that, portfolio holder.
It's not my portfolio, fortunately. It used to be. Responsible dog ownership is very important. Again, it's the law that we have to catch them in the act. We have to catch people letting their dog mess on the ground and either not picking it up or tying it to a tree, which would also attract a fixed penalty notice. We just need to be, our zone wardens need to be made aware of where this is happening on a regular basis so that they can go and the time of day and try and catch these people in the act, educate them or fine them or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, it does seem absolutely disgusting and I've seen it happen, I haven't seen it happen, but you can see the evidence that it's happened. And then we have more dog bins in Colchester than most other local authorities. We put a number in when we first came to the administration, and a number go in on days of action around the borough. And if you request them, and I think you can also pay for them through your locality budgets. We've got lots and lots of dog bins. We also put in the extra resources to empty the dog bins, and people still act irresponsibly and leave dog mess on the ground or hang them from trees. It's beyond belief. And again, keep reporting it to your zone teams, and people will get the message, either that or we'll get a lot of fining coming.
Thank you. I'd just like to take you to page 87, if I may. K1P1. The proposed targets for 15-16 are actually lower than the year-end result for 14-15. I was wondering how challenging that is actually going to be. K1P1, the first one, proposed targets. Majors 75, whereas this year 88 was achieved. Minors 85, this year 86, and others 90, whereas this year was 95% achieved. Also, in a similar vein, K1W1 on page 89, proposed target for 15-16 is... should that one be lower? Yes, that one should be lower, shouldn't it? Okay, that's what I've scrapped that one then. But certainly the first one for the planning. Yeah.
You're absolutely right in noting that sometimes the target is lower than performers, but it tends to be higher than the previous target. So I suppose what we have to do is set a target which we think is achievable, and we have to strip out of that any peculiar circumstances this year. So if we do well against the target, we tend to make the target more ambitious, and it tends to be the case that the new target will be somewhere between the old target and this year's performance, so that we make sure it's doable.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you. The subject's moved on, so I'll...
Councillor Hayes.
Again, as councillor for the town centre, I sometimes think that most of the dog poo bins seem to be in my ward, and yet a minority of irresponsible dog owners seem to be oblivious, or else to take malicious pleasure in deliberately sort of flouting other people's sense of well-being and enjoyment of the environment by, as people have said, deliberately hanging bagfuls of the stuff from tree branches and so on. But I would like to make a suggestion, and I'd love to have our portfolio holders comments. I've seen that there's a town in northern Spain, and also there's a similar project in East London, a pilot scheme, where because dogs have to be microchipped as from April 2016, they can also take the opportunity of a DNA database. And once there's a DNA database, it's going to be rather hard to explain. Well, it's going to be easy to catch people, in a nutshell, who do not pick up their dog poo. So I would like to know whether you think that this is a good idea for us to trial in our lovely town.
Sounds like a splendid idea, Chair.
Councillor Harrington?
Just a brief comment on that. Microchipping is one thing. You know I have an interest in this. I implant and sell microchips. Taking a DNA sample from a dog is a different matter altogether. You have to swab the cells from the inside of the cheek and send it off to a laboratory, and there's a cost incurred, and it would be up for authorities to assess who's going to pay for that, because you're quite right, by April next year members of the public will have to have their dogs microchipped, and that's going to come at a cost to them. But is it fair to say people will have to have their dog's DNA discovered at their cost, or are authorities going to take that up, and is the cost of it going to be beneficial in terms of this outcome? It's a huge matter for debate, but they're different things altogether, the microchip and the DNA.
Thank you very much for clearing that up for us. It's handy having a resident vet here clearing it up for us. Nice. Okay, can I just ask that on the Cabinet report that's going on the 2nd of September, can we just change the date? Because it says there under on page 65, Scrutiny Panel reviewed the year-end report on 21st of July. It's actually 18th of August now. We've moved on. So we have been invited to consider the significance of the performance, consider whether the proposed targets for next year are sufficiently realistic, and are we happy that that has been done? We've been fairly robust with it, I think. Yes. Thank you very much, Matt. I'm sorry we haven't got around to doing the last bit for you as well. But we will now move on to page 55, which is the review of the Council's funding and partnership delivery arrangements with First Sight. So, yes, Councillor Young, you can stay there if you like. Mr Hamilton, I have you down as a have your say. If you'd like to come to the table, please. Thank you, Mr Hamilton. You have 3 minutes, as usual. Bell will sound after 2.
This First Sight review is a typical farce. The only public meeting the First Sight representatives deign to appear, if they do, they make vague promises and you hand over $142,000 without hesitation. For 3 years, this irrelevant art group has singularly failed to justify a penny of public money. They refuse access to detailed visitor data and refuse to allow the press or public to attend their committee meetings. First Sight are squandering $2 million of public money every year, and yet the public have no control over the continuing misuse of our money. Colchester Council refuses any public debate on the visual arts facility and has richly deserved the continuing public humiliation. I told this council that if they wished to destroy themselves, I would help all the way. The derelict cultural quarter and abandoned vineyard gate will continue to be the most obvious result of your refusal to face reality. With help, every potential developer has been given the real facts, and not one is willing to spend their own money on these unviable projects. A free entry modern art gallery will always be a financial disaster. No amount of rearranging the committee chairs on this Titanic will save it. The visual arts facility will only be viable if you let a commercial exhibition company have a free hand with the VAF and surrounding land. Shame on you for your arrogant refusal to face reality.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Now, there's a couple of things, Mr. Hamilton, sorry, there's a couple of things there that you mentioned that I'd just like to comment on. You were talking about committee meetings not being held in public. I think you'll find that most board meetings are not actually held in public. You also said that Colchester Borough Council are refusing public debate on First Sight. I chaired one a couple of years ago, and that's actually what this is now. This is an open to the public meeting. You are entitled to your opinions, obviously, as is everybody, and I do hope you'll stay to the end to hear what the new management of First Sight have to say, because you may find it interesting, you may not, I don't know, but I do hope that you'll stay and see what they have to say. But thank you very much for your input. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Right, so so we're moving on to reviewing the Council's funding and partnership delivery arrangements with First Sight. I'd like to invite Anthony Roberts and Nozman Rashid, please, up to the table. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Councillor Young, I think you wanted to say something first. I'm disappointed that Mr. Hamilton's not still here, but hopefully he'll read the minutes and the write-up in the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, all I want to say by way of introduction is that obviously I'm delighted that Ant and Nozman are here, and they will. I know it's a bit of a look back, and it's a bit unfair on them, so that's why I thought I'd sit at the table, because I maybe be able to answer better the history. But I'm quite excited by what's happening at First Sight. I think we've seen the changes since Anthony was appointed, and Nozman's only been in post a few weeks, but also the changes that he is initiating. He's already responded to the motion from the last full council, inviting myself and presumably Councillor Hurst to join the board, I think, from October. So that has already been acted upon, and I'm looking forward to their presentation tonight, and hopefully you'll be impressed with what they have to say, and I may be able to help with some of the history if you want to go into it.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank you for coming along at such short notice as well, and I know you are only just in post, and obviously there's a lot of history here, but I think we're really here to see what's going to happen going forward, and there sometimes are lines to be drawn and move forward, but obviously we have to learn lessons from what has gone on. And I think have you got a presentation for us? You usually do.
He's a very good support, Chair. I'm the chair, so if you know what I mean. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name's Nozman Rashid. I'm very, very happy to be involved with First Sight. It's a long time since I've been in a local authority building, and for anybody that's looked my background up, I used to be a Deputy Chief Executive of 2 unitary authorities about 20 years ago, so very familiar with working in partnership with local authorities to make things happen as well. So it's been really nice working with elected members to make something happen locally as well. When I first took on the role, or should I say when I was first considering taking on the role, I have to be very candid with you that I was quite shocked at the financial situation. Being someone that has worked in a public service environment for many, many years, it kind of made you feel a little embarrassed, really, that you couldn't make something so wonderful happen with so much money, really. I wasn't even sure that this was a facility that you could turn around on behalf of the people of Colchester. However, I've been in post 20 working days, and I kind of realised that, you know, the wrong people probably made the wrong decisions about the wrong things, but they were probably in the right place, you know, in a building that you actually sanctioned in your lovely borough. Artistic leadership and programming wasn't what it should have been. IT and finance and management systems and procedures outdated, really, to say the least. And I should also, before I continue, to let you know that I am a practicing management consultant, and I do turn around as a living, and so I very quickly look at these things to make an assessment. The governance wasn't good in the sense that there were many people that liked art, but not many people that understood how to link art to a community and its regeneration to make a difference. Art for the well-heeled was something that came to mind rather than art for the people, if you like. Born in Bradford, I'm more for the people, if you like, and I'm a staunch Yorkshireman. As a result of all of this, the trustees have fell apart, you know, and it's quite a weak board. And that. First sight, I was surprised. I think last week I asked for the Wi-Fi code, and somebody said, "Oh yes, here it is." And I said, "Well, is it advertised?" And somebody said, "Oh, we didn't want to advertise it in case people came in." And I felt, honestly, that was the truth. And what it does is it epitomises the kind of thinking that well-heeled people, for creating art for well-heeled audiences, think about. And that it won't be like that in the future. Whilst the build for the First Sight gallery was delayed, other things around it has been delayed, and that's not helped necessarily. But in all honesty, when you look back at what's happened, you might think, I'm not sure even if the building, the regeneration had happened, it would be great. I'm sorry for being critical of the things of the past, but I have been there for 20 days, and in the 20 days in post, I've been at First Sight and working with First Sight, with Anthony and others, for 10 days. So I, worked very, very hard. I believe that Colchester has a world-class venue for local people that needs to be connected to your policies around regeneration and your desire to make a creative hub to build in the borough. First Sight can be an amazing nudge to make that happen, and we have plans to help. My view is to work from the community upwards and with the arts people sideways, and not let them necessarily take full control of the situation. I should tell you, I've opened many galleries and been involved in regeneration and art before over the years, so this is not unfamiliar territory to me. The arts institutions will just have to put up with the fact that we want to work with communities first. Because, when you look around the arts facilities in London, the National Portrait Gallery, the South Bank Centre, the Royal Academy of Arts, the one thing that they all desire is for people from communities, particularly those detached communities, actually get involved. And here we are with a real opportunity to make something starting the right way around for the first time, and we intend doing that. Our learning programmes seem to be good, but they're not quite focused on the things that I think are important for you, which is around education and skills. When we do something around learning, we need to relate it to things that schools want and can contribute to the curriculum. And I think my own background in education will help in those endeavours for young people. The business community have an amazing facility that they could use for their conferencing, etc., but they're not because of the reputation. But we will turn that around, and we have got a launch event for them. We need to optimise that space. We don't have a diversity or inclusion strategy. We don't have an equalities action plan, interestingly enough. When I told my wife that, who happens to be a diversity and inclusion expert. She bit my head off for even agreeing to be the chair. How dare I come there? But, we will put something together that takes into consideration those communities that are not necessarily reached. I have a particular interest in ensuring that we reach out to needs, those people not in education, employment and training, newcomers and the elderly, because I've got a lot of experience of engaging those communities. The outside of the area hasn't been developed, as the gentleman who came in a little earlier made very clear, but that doesn't mean that we can't actually work together to make something quite impressive happen. And I'm not talking about necessarily the big regeneration programmes. What we need is a bridging strategy, and that bridging strategy is about vibrant, dynamic activities around the outside of the building that's on there on a daily basis that people can come. I'm inspired by the South Bank. 20 years ago it was dead. But today, if you go there, there's something on every day. There's somebody that wants to put something on there. There is no reason. There's loads of space there. We will, hopefully, launch our partnership initiative there for the outside, and we're going to call it Gold Square. Why are we going to call it Gold Square? Because we just thought it was a nice name. So you can advise me on that if you like. First Sight can accelerate, I think, the regeneration, and we want to help, and we're working with all of the stakeholders. Our transition programme will involve a major overhaul of the things that are not right there, including the staffing, the finance, the CRM. There's no analytics to help the board make decisions at all. They're just making them up based on their knowledge, etc. Anthony Roberts, as our interim managing director, has made a significant contribution using his special set of skills around engaging the community. That needs to now be developed into a sustainable model with the international exhibitions as well. I think that we can help, and I'd like to help, and Anthony is going to tell you in more detail. You hand it over to the rail guy now. Anthony.
I hope this slide kind of working. I usually like to get technology to give me these visual prompts. What I'd like to do is to talk to you a little bit about the here and now and the real and the practical. Because I think, I live in Colchester. I live in Colchester. I've lived in Colchester for 25 years. I've followed this project from when it was a sparkle in the eye of Kath Wood, Andrea Hill, Andrea Stark, so I feel very close to it, just as a person in the community. And we've heard about grand plans and huge dreams and all these wonderful things, and I will talk to you about them as well. I won't leave those alone, but I want to talk to you as well about the real differences that just a few things can make, and then can inspire people and to re-engage with them, to help this venue find a voice, to push a door open so that people feel comfortable and able to express themselves creatively in this huge iconic building, which can feel a little bit intimidating and has done before in the past. So look, there it is, the huge great golden banana. I've got a story about a golden banana which I'll come back to later, but here's so this picture's me at the opening. There I am, 2011. The reason I'm showing you that picture is because I think part of this exercise is about reconnecting the community. It's not just to crowbar a picture in of my lovely little boy, by the way, although it is that as well. But it's about reconnecting the ambition, the hope and the dreams that we had when we all queued up and went in there in 2011. And there I was there along with everyone else. So, at the moment, what is happening now in the building itself? Because sometimes I think the organisation hasn't been good at telling people, just hasn't been very good at telling people enthusiastically about what's going on now and some of the changes. So here we go then. This is our major exhibition at the moment. It's huge paintings. The artist is a guy called John Virtue. There we are. Yeah, a conceptual one. I'm seeing something different. There we are. That's been done.
With no music.
John Kay. John Virtue. There we are. Huge paintings. Nowhere else in Colchester would be able to house them. They are paintings, which is a move away from the conceptual work that has been more commonly used in the space. He's an international artist. He was placed at the National Theatre, National Gallery. He was artist in residence there. They sit very beautifully in that space, and they work very well. They are large, they are dramatic, they are very well. This guy's an international guy, and they're in our 4 main galleries. That's exhibition number 1. That leads our programme at the moment. In exhibition number 2 is a beautiful project, and one that sort of goes under the radar sometimes when people talk about First Sight. So this exhibition number 2, is called We Will Remember Them, and it's a project centred in North School, and it came about when this document referred to an assembly in 1919 when 50 of the boys that had attended that school, their photographs were on the wall, and they spent 2 minutes silence looking at these photographs. So the project started with an attempt to find these photographs, to re-celebrate these people. Couldn't find the photographs, so worked with a local historian and found actually that there were 75 young men that had been to North School that had died during the First World War. And the pupils, working with the historian and our learning and education team, created this plaque to remember them. But it wasn't just about creating this plaque. This plaque was designed by the children themselves. It's there now. It's there. It's exhibition number 2. Each of these people was researched to where they lived in Colchester, and these are all on display here. So this is William James Valander. That's the house in Crowhurst Road. Many of you will know Crowhurst Road, where that young man lived when he was at North School. Quite a few. Horace Quilter from the workhouse at the top of St Mary's. And each of the soldiers was the subject of an individual project assigned to a particular pupil. So they would create a document about them. And these are all beautifully collected into the exhibition space itself. In Albert Street alone, you know Albert Street near North Hill? 20 houses there had people went to North School and died in the First World War. It had a lovely opening ceremony. I say lovely, it was a very poignant opening ceremony. Judy was there, bugler, the children came in, they sang songs, and it was all partly funded by Heritage Lottery money as well, so there was a partnership. In 25 years of working in Colchester in the arts, my role in this exhibition has been just tiny. It's nothing, but I'm so proud to be part of that journey. That's exhibition number 2. Now, here's exhibition number 3, which is again children, but comes from a totally different starting point. So Colchester in Bloom came in, the small committee, 4 of them, David Harris was one of them, into Colchester foyer. Can we see you, Anthony? Came down the front. It's a much longer walk in First Sight from my office to the foyer than it is in the Arts Centre, I have to say. I've got very fit over the last few weeks. We've got these lovely paintings. Is there something? Can we put them up in First Sight? Now, previously, that might have been problematic, I think. But, we want to be receptive, we want to be listening, we want to find answers. And there isn't a gallery space immediately available for these things. But look, our learning team have these portable walls. So why don't we use the portable walls? We can put them in the foyer, we can put them in the mosaic space, we can put them in and we can be responsive and we can make those things happen. So that's 5 different schools. There was a small competition. Hopefully all those parents will come and see them. Receptive, opening, listening, creative, open to opportunities. Exhibition number 4, James Ravenel, a digital artist, part of the Essex Network of Artists Studios, which is based at First Sight, a network of galleries and artists across Essex. 4 of these were selected to present, and James's work is in the back of of First Sight at the moment. And in the foyer, on the display boards above the desk, is James Ravenel. Exhibition number 4. Exhibition number 5 is Richard De Domenici's first 9 holes, and that's the interactive crazy golf that the Gazette was so keen that I had instigated. And it's a beautiful piece of work. It's fun, it's clever, it's witty, it's playful, it's engaging, and it draws people from that cavernous foyer round the corner to maybe have a little look more at the beautiful mosaic, etc. So that's 5 exhibitions. Currently now, and I'm still on now, not in some wonderful golden age in the future, which I will come to, with this man, but now, Colchester on Sea. So the theme of John Virtue's painting is the sea. What can we do to animate and make that more attractive? Well, we've created in our, to the side, our garden next to it, which is problematic for a different reason, but let's not go there at the moment. Colchester on Sea has all sorts of seaside fun and games so that people can come in completely free of charge. There's sand. This is the beach hut that is being painted on our free Saturday events for children at the moment. That one's assisted by an artist called Hester Chillingworth, but look, it's children painting and having fun. And that's on continuously. That's increased our audience and footfall enormously. There's quoits, there's all sorts of Colchester on Sea. That is part of a series, that particular Saturday is part of a series of free Saturday events for children, which run 11 to 1 and 2 to 4 every Saturday. And it's family events, and people can just come along and enjoy them. And I was astonished when I joined. You've hit the floor running about lots of things that you've caught up with, but I myself, who's also lived in Colchester, have been astonished about the amount of activity that I didn't know, and I go there. So these are, and if you want a second opinion, this one's Grand Union Orchestra. So, people making music. It's not all just painting, visual arts, digital, etc. It can be a number of different things. But don't take it from me, take it from Ben Locker, because I said to Ben Locker, who's got a young family, look, I'm new in post, I get told one story, of course I'm going to get told one story, I'm going to say to Judith, how did it go? She's going to say, oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? He went along, he took his kids, and he gave me a detailed feedback about what was going on, and he was glowing, to my huge relief and excitement, because I knew that we had something that was working really well that wasn't properly experienced. Here we are, these are all first sight. Now, this is one outside. I took this Saturday night, so we're still very current. There's my beautiful golden bus, which I've painted gold, which I can drive round to advertise our golden building and our gold square at the time, which is sitting adjacent to at the moment. And the reason I took it on Saturday night is because adjacent to that, in the D-shaped lawn, there was 200 people watching this event, which was a late night screening of Jaws outside, sold out, 200 people. There were people dressed in shark headgear, there were badges, there was all paraphernalia around Jaws. I don't like the film, but no, it was a great, and it's something that happens that just disappears. What's First Sight doing? 200 people, I'll tell you what it's doing. 200 people watching Jaws on a Saturday night family thing, free, completely free. Part of our cinema season. What a beautiful cinema that is. That's not an indication of the amount of people that are using in it. I'm just showing it to you because it's there. And this season has Othello from the Royal Shakespeare Company, an extremely successful part, and has now been bumped up by a bit of good old-fashioned arts marketing. That's where I'm from, telling people about stuff, printing leaflets, doing emails, etc. Look, Benedict Cumberbatch, that's sold out. That's in October. That's a sold-out event in October. We've already got bookings for the rescreening of it. We've got 78 bookings for the rescreening of it. That's just a repeat performance. Okay, Benedict Cumberbatch, who's he? I'm not up on popular culture, but apparently he's well known. He's in Hamlet. Other films, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. We don't just do obscure foreign language films, although we do, and they're very good too. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, what a great film. Connected with the sea. Talking about connections with the sea, here's my favourite film, The Little Mermaid. Watch it with Reg all the time. But it is not just films, not just Othello, not just opera, because the Grateful Dead's final concert. Come on, a Grateful Dead. Actually, the leader of the Grateful Dead died 20 years ago, so I was a little bit surprised when I saw that they were joining to make this thing. But yeah, okay. So There's a picture of a regular weekly flow group. That's 15 to 25-year-olds who meet to do circus skills. You can see that. That's in our D-shaped lawn. That happens every week. I see that going on outside of my office. That was a surprise when I first got on there. What's going on there? Oh, yes, there every week. Young arty people. Another young people's group that meets weekly there. Art in the community. These are for people who have mental health issues. Another quiet thing that goes on as you go through that gallery in the learning studios, which is more labyrinthal than you think about the building, because you quite often read it just as this big walk round, is a regular thing that happens very quietly, very beautifully, but it's very, very important. Look, it's about eating and having fun as well. It's about being playful. The Hunt and Darton Cafe, there we are. You can order a poem, you can order a dance, you can order a micro-performance. It is intended to be lo-fi, it's intended to be colourful, it's supposed to be full of art. These are artists, they're not just caterers. They reanimated the front of our building. They pop up, but as with all best things, they pop down as well. And in their place, we have now our own little cafe that we are running, because eating and drinking and being inclusive are a very, very important part of the change that we want to bring to First Sight. So that when those doors go back at the front, it doesn't feel like a cathedral. It doesn't feel like an academic library. It feels like a place where you might, look, there's a place to start conversations. I'd like to think that Beverly could bring her biscuits in and say, like, I tell you what, I brought my own biscuits in. Right? Say, oh, nice, yes, come in. And say, well, not these again. Tell her they're nice, But these things. There's no other gallery in the UK that has a 200 AD Roman mosaic, thank you, in its midst. It is phenomenally beautiful. We need to kind of celebrate that. We need to make it more. And this picture is today. That's not kind of like, I haven't sort of like gone to the library and said, oh God, show me someone with people in it. That's today. That's people, well, you can see, on top of the mosaic, enjoying that space. And enjoying some of these other peripheral things that you can see that we put round to supplement the exhibition. We never get local artists in First Sight. It's all about international work. You can never get a thing. Well, now we are having our first open exhibition where anyone and everyone, and even Nurzaman Rashid, is putting some work into this exhibition. He told me today. I didn't know if he was serious, but he is. You are putting the work in, isn't it? He's actually a trained artist. But we have now 139 people, so that anyone who can fit their work into a 1 metre square can come in, and we will try and put that work up on the wall. My main worry is that we'll get too much, but I'm budgeting for about 800 pieces of work. So anywhere and everywhere that you go in First Sight, from the start of October to towards the end of November, will be you will say, don't expect to go to the toilet and not see a piece of work, because we will have local work throughout the length and breadth of it, and hopefully that will be part of a key strategy to get people to come in and feel more comfortable, more engaged, more able to enjoy the space. It's about being visible. Now, I'll talk about easy, quick fixes. Why don't you put some signs up? Yeah, let's put some signs up, There we are. I did ask if we could use all the people who use the top of Lewis Gardens to turn round in our viewing figures, because that would bump things up hugely, wouldn't it? But I've stuck with the things, there's a big sign there. I always say this. For a huge, beautiful, landmark golden building, it would be difficult to hide it, wouldn't it? But we've done a pretty good job. People have parked in Priory Street and come up and said, I spent 20 minutes trying to find it. I mean, it's huge. But you can also understand that, you can see that. And that is part of the regeneration thing that Nurzaman was talking about. That is part of the kind of connecting that we can do as well. But it's true. Now, here's a very interesting image for you. That's a car park, Priory Street car park. And that's a gate that leads through the car park into First Sight. But we can only keep it open during the school holidays, because that field that we were talking about doubles up as the playing field for St Thomas More Primary School. And so access to it for it is really restricted. Now, obviously, it has huge problems in terms of disability access, but in terms of me being able to say, come to First Sight, park here, it's right next door. Because at the moment, if you click on the First Sight website and says where you're going to park, it will say all these are within easy walking distance, and these are kind of changes that we need to make. Say, actually they're not. One of them's a Butt Road car park. I lived in Butt Road for 12 years. If I parked in Butt Road, it would take me 20 minutes to walk to First Sight, if I could find it, the signage. So sometimes, things that can make a real difference. If this was open 24/7 and people parked in Priory Street they would come just to access the town. They would walk through and they would see First Sight from a beautiful image. There's a postcard. My mum got this postcard, said, you work there. And I said, yeah, gosh, that's a great photograph, isn't it? Because people don't see it from there. What they see is when they come down the kind of rather ramshackle Lewis Gardens, through past the skateboarders, past the boarded up Keddy, into this big kind of thing. They don't see the beauty. We're not able to see the beauty of it like that. Now, I did say I'd talk about some things in the future, and I don't know, is that the press here? Please don't say I'm going to do every part of this, because I don't sell front pages of it. But the Turner Contemporary in Margate borrowed... Oh, God, they didn't borrow the car park. Borrowed Rodin's Kiss. And you can borrow that. It takes about 18 months. And you have to make a case for it. So you can't just say, put me on the list, when's the next thing? You have to say, it fits in with this, or we're doing that. But if it's gone to Margate, it's part of the Tate Collective, there's absolutely no reason why it can't come to First Sight. We have that one controlled room. It's a very simple idea. We have some really splendid, brilliant, famous pieces of work as a centrepiece around which we can build you've seen how creative the team can be around the sea. Well, how creative can they be around the Kiss? And that would have footfall overnight. It would have footfall overnight. You would be bringing your friends to it. You would be coming up to see it. I've told you about John Virtue's The Sea. They're good paintings. They're not Rodin's Kiss. There's another image of it in there, in Margate. Now, okay, you've told us about that, Anthony. What effect has it made? Has it made any difference at all? Is it you just rabbiting on? Mr. Hamilton's gone, but he did say that we were very secretive about our visitor figures. Well, these are our figures that we've got comparing 1 week. This is this week as well. I haven't picked this week. I've picked it because it's this week. These are the figures that I'll be showing to the staff at our staff meeting tomorrow. So in 2014, there was 1865 people visited First Sight. This last week, there's been 3310. That's an increase of 1,445 people. Is that enough? No, it's not enough. But look, it's a big dent, isn't it? We made a start. And 1,445 as a percentage of 1,865. Math's not my strong point. But and you can make figures say what you want. But 1,445 as a percentage of 1,865 is 77%. So you could say there's a 70% increase in visitors. If you add them up, it might mean something else. I just did that on my phone before the meeting because I thought, I wonder what the percentage is. There might be. But that's the figures. The number of Facebook people, if this means anything to you guys, 2,678 likes is up 23 on last week. We count these things now. And Twitter is huge. I mean, there's 8,203 Twitter followers. That's more than Arts Centre, which surprised me. And in our last week alone, we had 116 more people join in. And our data, our MailChimp, some of you might be on my email list. You'll never get off it, by the way, if you are. So, and that has gone up. Yeah, you've tried. That's gone up 28 in the last week. Data capture is very important for First Sight and the future going forward. At the Arts Centre, you buy a ticket for the Arts Centre, I'll look you up, I can tell you exactly what gigs you've come to, when you've come, what your total spend is over this year, last year, put together, etc. That kind of information supermarkets would kill for. That's what they use the loyalty cards for. I've got that at the Arts Centre. In a gallery, it's a different gig altogether, so we need to be really clear that we are going to capture data. We can't just, I've got a little meet and greet desk at the front because it's too intimidating at the front now. They have lists of things to do, and they're told by me, I'm like a broken record. How much have you, how many people have you got, etc. Those are our stats. Right, this is rather poetically saying now and forever, but they're just a hit list of things that I wanted to throw at you, and some of them are reprieving them. Galleries are social space. I think it's worked well as an art space. Whether some of that art's been popular, whether it's liked or not, but in terms of putting art on the wall, yes. Has it? I think the challenge has been working as a social space, as a space for people to come in and enjoy a meal, a drink, a conversation, a biscuit, a cinema, an interval drink, a kind of comfortable space, a space to engage with, a space for people to be in, for no other reason, just not to just look at paintings, but to meet. Where you're going to meet, to take your relatives and your friends to, when you think, a place to meet other people. Friendly welcome, different foyer, bacon butty and a cup of tea. Last time I was here doing scrutiny with Art Centre in the Mercury, a chap called Mick Chilvers came in, and he said, I went in there, it was just blank walls, which I showed you earlier on, which I thought John Virtue. I went and tried to have a cup of tea and a ham sandwich cost me £8.50. I don't know if it did or not. It sounds a little bit dear, but the point was it felt remote. It felt there was nothing for him in there, and the grub was too expensive. A cup of tea and a bacon sandwich is very important because we've got it in house now. I can buy it for you without having cost it back to the Art Centre at £2.50. I can just say, come in and have a cup of tea. Responsive, listening, a mix of exhibitions, international open exhibitions. James Dodds is after the open exhibitions with the Hayward touring, so that's a mixture of a fantastic local artist, visited the studio down in Wivenhoe with a wonderful Hayward listening thing with stuff throughout the gallery, a mix of activities, crazy golf and the sea, busy cinema. Every day now in October we have programmed a film. There's a film every day in October. Classical music. Orlando, what a fantastic festival. Can I do a show in the Mosaic Space? Yes, I'd love you to do a show in the Mosaic Space. It's a beautiful new commission. It's going to look fantastic there. Yes, there's some logistical stuff, but I'll promote nothing that we can't get round. Live comedy with the Comedy Festival. There's Comedy Festival films, but there's going to be comedy nights in there as well. I've booked in a late night cabaret over Christmas. This extremely camp comedian called Scotty is going to come and do something bizarre in our cinema space. I've talked about outdoor cinema. Nuzman's talked about outdoor events. An accessible car park. Okay, it's difficult to get really excited about that, but actually it's really important. Artist talks and lectures. We want to be transparent, nimble, open, fleet of foot, able to change. So if we try something, we're not so precious about it. Yeah, okay, tried that. Let's do something else. Now, I'm looking at the press here. Rooftop walks and the Golden Slide. The O2, you can book a walk over there. And this band has walked over Sydney Bridge twice, I think it has been. I've been up on the roof of First Sight. I probably shouldn't have done for health and safety reasons, but I went up there, and it's brilliant up there. It's so gold. Well, you don't get the sense of gold when it's really lovely. Let's find out about it. So I got Steve Gunn. He works for a thing called High Life. He came up, he looked around. What's the cheapest way we can do it? Is there a quick fix? I don't know. Why can't we have a big golden slide coming from the top of the thing, going down into the D-shaped lawn? That would change footfall overnight. And people then would get a way to get them to show other pieces of art as well. We've got to get them, got to move them in. Accessible performance, a fantastically accessible building. So we want more accessible performances. I'm very, very keen on access for people with disabilities. Visibility, we've talked about, changing the website. That personalised email thing, I grabbed hold of that straight away because that's a very, very productive tool. Social media, Twitter, data capture I've talked to you about. Colne River radio broadcast. Colne River radio came in and they said, can we do something? And I was like, yeah. What do you want to do? It's not... I want people to... It's not like, no, we haven't got this kind of thing. It's like, and sometimes it would be no, but really, we want it to be, yes, loans of masterpieces. And if this is what I wanted to sort of end with, if you wanted to kind of have a soundbite, it's about changing the idea of a private view, which is elitist, invitational, about you feel exclusion to a public launch. And what we did then was on the 12th of June this year was my first attempt to do such a public launch. Jonathan, do you think it's going to work this time? I've got every faith in you, every faith I have. Try again. Okay, let's go and back. That's what we did before, isn't it?
That should be it. Go back one more time.
Let's go back. Give it another go.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. But no. Right. Option 2, Plan B. Jonathan does it as well. This is a film of our public launch of the John Virtue on the 12th of June. Many thanks to Darius Lords for this. Darius Lords was one of many people who came and said, can we do something? And I said, yeah, you can. What do you want to do? He said...
who I'm sure is going to lead First to really great things. Now, I've always thought Colchester is the cultural capital of Essex, and I think First could be the jewel in that crown.
I do love this town. I love Colchester, I love its foibles and its quirks. We dared to dream that we would build a huge gallery that could house and invite the international community and be part of us. And that dream lives alive today in this fantastic building and with the fantastic artists that we are welcoming, not just now, but in the future, celebrating the arts and the creative community from across the world. Thank you.
Brilliant it is to have this multi-million pounds art facility here in our town, here in Colchester. We can make it a success, but to do that, we've got to celebrate it from local momentum.
As a Blue Badge Guide, I do tell people about the controversial buildings in Colchester. They're the ones that have survived the test of times. So you do have the Temple of Claudius, you have the Norman Castle, you have John Bow, and then finally you've got First Sight. It will be here for lots of years to come and make Colchester a fantastic place.
It's people that animate buildings, people that bring ideas. I just feel part of that community and I feel honoured and privileged to be part of it. I'm looking forward to spending many, many happy days in this beautiful building and in this beautiful town.
Now, just indulge me for just 2 minutes. This is just an epilogue. After that event, I had so many lovely well-wishers and, people, friends of mine and family, whatever. But I also had a lot of feedback from people I'd never met before. And I was really touched by this. This was a couple that lived in Priory Street, and they just wrote this. Just indulge me here. It's a minute. We wanted to be there so much, but Jim was so ill it wasn't to be. I went to pick up his prescription for him and drove back down a high street around 6 p.m. I was amazed and thrilled to find traffic problems. So many people arriving at first sight and trying to find somewhere to park. East Hill was at a standstill as cars tried to squeeze into tiny gaps outside St James Church. I did the Roman Castle Road circuit, came back up the hill, marvelling at the number of people heading for Lewis Gardens. Turning into Queen Street, I found even more, crossing the road and heading for First Sight. Then I turned into Priory Street and realised how full the car park was. I couldn't even park in my usual space opposite my house. I had to park much further down. Why? Because people were leaving their cars in the car park and streaming through the gate in the Roman wall. You have no idea how that lifted my spirits. I came in grinning like a Cheshire cat and went to report to Jim. "Oh, I am so pleased. That is marvellous," he said. We were both so relieved and so incredibly happy. We both love the gallery. Apart from anything else, it is one of the only wheelchair-friendly places in the town where Jim can have a pint. Having been involved with the Minories for most of my life, my father was on the original VBLT, that's Victor Batley Trust. And then helping out with First Sight right from the start. We both desperately want the place to succeed. After last night, we believe that it will. Well done, Anthony and the team. Brilliant again. Good luck to you all. Cheers, Joe.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think anything I say now is going to be... It's now nearly 8:10. And I had said that we would have a break at 8 o'clock. So it would now be a good time to break, I think, for 15 minutes and see you back here at, should we call it 20 past? Just gone 20 past? Yeah. Thank you. That worked. Right, well, thank you very much for that. It was really, really interesting. Gave us all lots to think about over the break. Can I invite questions, please? Councillor Lilly.
Thank you very much, Chair. And good evening, very good presentation. I was subbing tonight, and when I looked at the agenda this afternoon, I thought, OK, First Sight, here we go. Same old story, same old negative stuff for the last, how many years? It seems to be going on longer than the Rowage Heritage Centre. And don't get me started on that one. But, and Mike knows about that tonight. But, and there's a big but, what I heard tonight was, it's a different world. Fantastic, brilliant presentation. Quite different to when I actually subbed on this panel a few years ago, I think, and I think it was a Conservative member, a councillor, asked Kath Wood, I think at the time, about why don't we have more exhibitions on there that would appeal to the public, and the answer that he got was basically, well, what's it got to do with the public, basically. And that was a terrible attitude to take, and as you can see, it's been like that for the last few years, and the person to come early with these negative comments. What a shame he didn't stay tonight to see a different First Sight, one more for the residents of all over the borough to enjoy, and it really is a different story. And I wish you really well with the project, and I hope that the people of Colchester and everywhere else supports it. So I will keep it brief. Apart from the Grateful Dead item, of course, which we won't get into. My brother-in-law did go because he asked me to go, and I said, "Oh no, please." And I think he left. It was just too much for him. But for him to go to see that something different was really good. But the main thing is to go into that building, which everyone thinks is an art gallery, and to see art on the walls. That was the problem the last few years. There were no art. You could go in, walk around for 20 minutes and then just go again. Look at the toilets, which were great and still are, but now it's going to be more about the art, the exhibitions, what's going on, and the people that are going to be in there to enjoy it. So you've got my full support on this, and congratulations on the project that you're going to have for the future.
Thank you. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. I think when the presentation started, the new chair of the board said that he wasn't sure whether the project could be turned round, and having spent 10 days at the organisation, wondered if you could let us know whether you think that you feel that it can be turned around now. So that's a specific question for you, and one for Anthony as well. I get the weekly updates, so I enjoy getting those. As a result of getting those updates, I've been to see a film. I saw London Road there. Quite a different experience from going to Colchester Road in, I have to say. Didn't wade through the popcorn on the way. Need to do something about the ice creams. I've told you that before. Chalk ices in the interval would be nice. I went to, I've been involved in 1, 2 and 3 exhibitions, and I suppose for me, and I know we've seen a lot in terms of the presentation, but the Colchester in Bloom project in particular, I arrived at the venue and stood waiting to come in with the children that were coming to look at their art and to see how it was displayed. And I said to them, have you been to First Sight before? And to be honest, I was quite shocked when they said they had. And I was there, obviously, for the First World War project. And it was great to see young people in that building. And, had it been 6 months earlier, it just wasn't happening. They just weren't in there. So they clearly are going in, and they're going back in, which is good news to see. So I'd like to have a bit more of an understanding, I suppose, from you, Anthony, about whether you feel that the public perception of First Sight can be turned around and how we can do that in the media, because we've still seen some challenges in terms of the media coverage of First Sight that has been ongoing, and how we can actually turn people like Andy Hamilton into a supporter of First Sight going forward. So there's a big challenge for you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Your question was, is it doable in terms of turning it around? Certainly what Anthony Roberts has proved, that we can be a very attractive venue for local people in particular, and a diversity of activity can work. In my experience as a management consultant, or more precisely a turnaround consultant, the challenges are slightly more complex than just putting events on. The first thing we have to do is ensure that we have a sustainable infrastructure, and what I mean by that is good management systems in terms of financial accounting, in terms of forward planning. We need to ensure that the building is safe and secure in terms of its maintenance and the capital cost, because it is a few years old already. It may be a landmark building, but there are issues with it that we need to work on. The staffing issues have sprawled. People do all kinds of jobs, so that needs to be sorted out too. So there's a lot to do still, Councillor, in terms of creating a sustainable organisation. I'm really glad to say that the only difficult thing about it is that there's a lot to do. It's not so difficult that it's unsolvable. That's the good news, is that we know what the issues are, and I can see what the potential things are that we have to do. The partnership that I have struck up with local stakeholders, and when I say that I mean yourselves through your officers and lead members, through the county council, with the Arts Council, has been very positive, because coming in as fast as I have to review what can be done, and my assurance to them has meant that everybody's been really positive, and we are open book about this, and we want the members to be involved so that they can go along with us and see the development.
Thank you. Councillor Cope.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Chair, the other question was for Anthony about turning the public perception round in terms of press.
Yeah, absolutely, we can do it, but and it will be done. It can't be done overnight. That was a great opening that we had, but that's not going to change everybody's opinion straight away, immediately. It's really interesting working in the Arts Centre and the First Sight, because the Arts Centre is so loved. It's really people, but partly because it's older.
People have met there, they've got off with their first girlfriend there, they've smoked in the graveyard. You know, there's a bank of growing up, and First Sight's 3.5 years old, and it just, you know, and that will come. You know, it will work out. You know, in 30 years' time, this and our little thing will be a small blip in a huge, you know, bank of experience and art and people and parties and broken dreams and ambitions and all those kinds of things. But in the immediate here and now, we have to work with the tools we've got and keep our focus about, we've got an exhibition opening. For the open exhibition, we need to make sure that works really well. And the back engine stuff, I mean, I have to say it's been really great working with Nurseman, because he brings a huge bank. You know, I'm just an old promoter in Colchester, you know, but the kind of stuff that he's been teaching me about what it means to turn an organisation around, because it's a big organisation. You know, I work in a small organisation, but you need the right team, and I think Nurseman is putting that team together. So, yeah, I wouldn't say no, but I'm really just saying it sincerely, yes, it's good.
Thank you. Councillor Cope.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, congratulations on the open day the other day. That was tremendous, and on this submission done just now. If you've been to Newcastle, you can see an example. I can't remember what it's called. Is it the Cage? Something like that. The Sage. The Sage. Gateshead. Oh well, I went there with my brother-in-law. Yes, I thought that's a good example of how such a concept can be extended. A few months ago, I went to an exhibition here, and it looked like a mattress with water dripping on it. And I was really quite confused as to what I was looking at, and I almost reported it. But apparently, it was part of the exhibition. So I'm afraid I don't get on that. I don't get on that well with certain aspects of modern art. I'll come back to that point. The auditorium seems to be the best individual feature. You've got live theatre there, or did you call it data cache? Live streaming or live theatre, whatever you call it. You get it in the other cinema as well. Which raises the question for me, this word contemporary, it's written into the funding schedules. Well, obviously, Shakespeare's not contemporary, but you've got that. Rodin's not contemporary, you mentioned that. So what exactly is the stricture on this word contemporary? Where does it kick in? Because it seems to me that it isn't a very helpful word when you can get a whole lot of stuff that isn't contemporary, and that actually works better, with all due respect to contemporary people who do their best. We need more than just contemporary, as well as contemporary. And I think there's a restriction there, which is a problem. You covered the point of access from Prior Street. Well, that's a no-brainer. I do hope that we can actually do something to help you on that as a borough. I wonder if we can.
Thank you, Councillor Cope. I'm just going to deal with the issue around a contemporary visual arts gallery. As far as I can see, we are bound to promote the centre or the gallery as a contemporary arts gallery. But that doesn't mean that we don't and can't put Rodin's Kiss there or do all of the things Anthony's doing. But the Arts Council is a £1.4 billion funded government agency that gives out money to do certain things. And I think as a minimum, we need to just put on a set number of exhibitions. What's really interesting for us is to find exhibitions that are relevant to people and have an element of localism around them. I have looked at what exhibitions have been there, and I nearly died when I looked at what the first exhibitions were. I said, I just would not have put those exhibitions on when you've got so many artists to choose from. I was speaking to a psychologist, and he said, you know, some people have a fear of coming into buildings like this, and it turns into just negativity because nobody wants to be made a fool of, you know. And really, when you put an exhibition on, you need to try and think about how people will accept it and how it is relevant, how it's linked in. So, for example, the examples that Anthony used of the work we did around John Virtue's The Sea, we related those things to that. We just need to be a lot smarter around the exhibitions that we put on, and we will spend a lot longer discussing those to make them relevant.
Thank you, Chair. I and Anne Hedges, our Chief Operating Officer, have been living and breathing First Sight for the last at least 6 months or more, and so we've gone into it in great depth, and actually the word contemporary does not appear in the Constitution, in the agreement, and therefore you have got greater latitude. The Arts Council are the biggest funder, so they will have a say. It's a visual arts facility. It was meant for modern art. But there is a huge range of possibilities that Anthony and Nosman are obviously capitalising upon. Contemporary does not appear in any of those documents. So we have got that degree of flexibility. On opening up the gate and going across the field, there has been some tension, let's put it that way, between St Thomas More School, First Sight and the Council about trying to overcome some of those difficulties. And I know that you are working on that relationship with the head teacher and the governors of that school, because that is so important about access. And I know Ant's absolutely right about disabled access. It wouldn't help them because you've got to get up those stairs. But that is so important because that is access from one of our car parks, so we'd get income, into First Sight. So that needs to be worked on. Maybe, I think St Thomas More is still local authority funded school, so it might be we have to work through county as well. But, you know, I think the relationship is now a lot better. Ant might be able to say more about that relationship that's been very, very strained over that piece of land in the past. The fact that they've allowed Colchester on Sea to be there, and, you know, it's always good to associate something with Essex's finest seaside resort. And that works really well. I went there, I've been to the waiting room, and went to see the Colchester on Sea, and the kids there were loving it, and families having a great time. So I think there's a lot going on. But Norseman's right, there's still a huge number of challenges. We're moving in the right direction, but don't think we're at the start of a journey. We're not like anywhere there yet, and it's still going to take up an awful lot of my time and officers' time, and no doubt your time as well, before we can say it's become what we all want it to be. You want to say anything about the relationship with the school?
Well, I'd like to say something about contemporary art, if that's allowed. I'm a great fan of contemporary art, but contemporary doesn't mean a particular genre. It just means new. Yeah. Contemporary means done now. So it can be any kind of thing. And one of the things I think is important about First Sight, it should be able to offer a space for new people, you know, because every artist in the world, you know, whatever their art form, Shakespeare or Picasso or whoever it is, was once someone looking for a gig who no one had ever heard of. So I think it's important that we have respond to people who haven't heard of. When you use the language contemporary art, people usually think what you're thinking about the mattress and conceptual. And when you talk about traditional work or older work, people think of watercolours of local paintings and this kind of thing. But it's actually a much more mashed up and fluid situation. Contemporary work can be good, it can be conceptual, or it can be figurative, and it can be bad. Local artists or traditional stuff can be good, can be bad. And I think as a venue we should keep an eye on what's new, and I think I subscribe to, I think of John Peel, on the John Peel show, who would break new ground and play stuff because you trusted that DJ. And he said, we're not here to give people what they want, we're here to give them what they didn't know they wanted. And there is an element of that beats in my heart. Let's kind of like, you know, show them that. Be the first, and then, you know... sometimes we are going to be brave, you know, we're going to put stuff on that's completely nuts, but you do have to earn the kind of like footfall for people to give it a go, don't you? The school. It's much better. Well, I mean, I spoke to Bridget, I spoke to Simon. They were both brainstorming ideas. Maybe we could have a little pathway. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could do that. We've going to put their nativity show into there so that we can give them something, and then maybe they can give us something back. It's not straightforward, but it is very, very important. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about car parking, but, like, you know, some of the fixes are kind of staring us in the face, guys.
Thank you for that. Does that answer your questions? Or?
Back quickly. Obviously, I didn't want to exclude contemporary. I just didn't want it to exclude everything else. Councillor Young has said that the word isn't to be found in any of our arrangements, funding arrangements. Are they to be found in the Arts Council's arrangements? So where is it's a myth then that's come down that people say it's got to be contemporary. Okay.
But Ant's right. Contemporary can mean a number of different things. Shakespeare is still contemporary, I would contest. So, even if it's not there, we do want it to be contemporary, but it isn't. It doesn't restrict us because it doesn't appear anywhere in the wording of any document associated with First Sight.
That's something tonight, then. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harrington.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and everybody else. This debate, I think, is going in a fascinating direction, quite the right direction. And thank you, gentlemen, for coming and for bringing your infectious enthusiasm. Congratulations on a brilliant opening night. I don't think I've had so much fun at a public event in Colchester since Colchester United paraded both the giant Cup Winners' Cup and the Watney Cup together in 1971. So, fantastic evening.
Before my time.
Now, on this matter of contemporary, because I suspect this might come up, and I did a little bit of research on this, and I think Councillor Copes brought this matter to the fore and hit the nail on the head here. And I read our funding agreement as well with First Sight, and the word contemporary isn't mentioned at all. Contemporary, in any case, in the definitions that I looked up, means that it's work by a living artist. So that is all-embracing. Modern art, Councillor Young, the term that you used, means art that has been created since 1910, so much wider scale. But then we get to avant-garde art, which I think is what perhaps we're talking about and a little bit worried about. And I think you've perhaps touched on this as well, because there are two types of avant-garde: abstract art, but installation art, which is where my worries about First Sight, and you mentioned lessons that have to be learned, and I would like to inject just a little caution into this debate, because installation art is the placing of objects where outside their usual context. So at the rather starchy first opening that we councillors went along to, there was an installation art exhibition which was a pile of rubble. And if anybody gets high on a pile of rubble, you can go to any building site around the borough and see a pile of rubble. It was followed shortly by an exhibition of engineering bricks. And if you get high on an exhibition of engineering bricks, you can go to Collier Catchpole or Kent Blacksall and see these. You don't need a wonderful, fantastic building to see a pile of rubble or engineering bricks. And these are examples of installation art that I think the people of Colchester have said, we're not going to come to a place that majors on these sorts of exhibitions because we don't like them. Mr. Rashid, you used the term, I think it was yourself, art for the well-heeled, or was it you, Ant? Yes, Mr. Rashid. I would say that type of art is art for the naked emperor. It's actually, well, I have to choose my words carefully in public here, but a lot of people in culture would say it's just not art at all. It's not something that they would go back and see again. They don't like a pile of rubble or a flat pack of engineering bricks. And I understand that it's much more than that, and you have injected a sense of fun and excitement and so much more into First Sight, and I really hope that it continues in this way. But can you be a little bit more specific to me that you're not going to rely on or depend on works of installation art to get punters through the door, because that's what I think might not happen?
Well, that's been an art education in the last 5 minutes installation. There's lots of things in there, Marcus. I mean, if you're talking about, piles of rubble and, that goes back to Marcel Duchamp's urinal that he put in as a provocative kind of statement, and there's a long histories and stuff that we can debate. What I would say is that we need a balance of work. We need stuff that's kind of like famous, like Rodin's Kiss. We need stuff that's figurative and will be obviously popular. But we also do need stuff that's going to challenge and provoke, because that's what art does. And I think, you can't... it would be disingenuous of me to say that I'm not attracted to a programme that does include in it an element which is challenging. Whether you call that installation, avant-garde, vanguard, whatever. But, I mean, Peely used to play records that no one had ever heard before, and he was the first to do that. And sometimes I think it's brave, and it is the remit of cultural leaders to choose work that they believe in and say, look, Marcus, you might not have seen this before, but I've seen this. It's like amazing. One of the things that you would probably call installation art was by a Greek artist in the same exhibition that I think, it was the Parliament of Things, maybe. There was some big rocks in that as well. Anyway, it does maybe fit into the kind of thing that you're talking about, in that it was candle wax wrapped up in pieces of paper and left in the corner. So you can walk past it and you think, oh, look, what's that? It's just candle wax wrapped up in the corner of something. It was part of all sorts of things, and some of the work I didn't like and some I. But I really loved that. I'll tell you why I love that. It's because I could see, from where it was, I could see St James Church, which is the church that we go to. My wife has a faith. I don't have a faith. But my little boy goes to St James School and we go to St James Church. But I do, although I don't have that faith myself, I do quite like churches. And I like the buildings, I like the smells, I like listening to my wife sing, I like the ritual, I like the sense of community. I quite like Father Peter there as well, although he's very grumpy. But to me, I quite like my English vicars to be grumpy. They're like characters out of Ealing comedies, and that's all very good. And one thing that we do that does touch me is that we light candles at Christmas. We might light one for my dad. We light one for my stepson. And that's a very moving thing for me. We do that. And these wrapped up pieces of wax are from a church in Greece, because what happens is that those then get melted down. They get sold to an intermediate, who then wraps them up, sells them back to the candle maker, and they get made back into candles again. Those candles get taken into church, and they get put back into the... So there's a cycle for these wax that's been interrupted by this artist, and they're quite heavy. They're specifically 1 kilogram each. So in that 1 kilogram wrap of newspaper, there's all the hopes, my stepson, your father's things, all those kind of like diseases or wishes or breathing things. And the fact that they were there, that they represented to me that journey that's part of me, and I could see that church. But you could just look at them and say, oh, look, they're just wrapped up pieces of paper. I can feel I'm not carrying on this, but I mean, that's just one response to a conceptual piece.
Yeah, you've made that very personal, and I appreciate that. Did I just sense your voice quiver a little bit in the middle of that?
It's my steps.
Because I did. That's extremely moving, and I don't really want to challenge that at all. And I hope that enough people share your feelings about those pieces of wax to make it a success. Just the one caution I retain, I appreciate what you've done. You have already begun to turn First Sight round, and it will be an enormous success. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But if you provoke the people of Colchester too much with urinals, we will actually tell you we don't want to see too many urinals.
I'm a chair. I mean, if we get Rodin's Kiss, that's great, and people will be queuing around the block to see it. But if we got... And I don't like Tracy Emin. I think she's a fairly objectionable character. But if we got Tracy Emin's unmade bed, the people would be queuing around the block to see that. So it's it's all in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But there are modern artists, Grayson Perry, Damien Hirst, Anthony Gormley. If we got any of those pieces in First Sight, people would be queuing around the block. It might not be your taste, it might not be my taste, but there are modern artists who attract huge numbers of people. And, we've got First Sight have got a relationship with the Tate. And so we can get great pieces of art with that Tate Plus relationship and partnership. What we have got to turn around, and these guys are going to do it, I'm absolutely certain of it, is turn around that public perception, and we can help. We've got to, if any carping criticism is still coming out of the council, then I think that's got to stop, because we've all got to work together. And I've been part of that in the past, because, the Labour group was against the project from the start, but we always said, now it's there, we've got to make it work, we've got to make it. And I think the language has changed, and I think you can hear that tonight, both from Norseman and Anthony, and that's why I have fragile but increasing confidence about the future.
Thank you. And can I just finish?
Very briefly, please.
OK. Perhaps the mistake that was made, and you referred to the programming, was to have those sorts of works too early, before the relationship with the community was built, and you could indulge in them. Thank you. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
OK, this is in danger of becoming a bit of an arts appreciation society. We are here to scrutinise. I was asked to put a question to you both that I understand that you will not be able to answer. I will put it to you, and I will kind of semi-answer it myself, but I would like to leave it with you, and perhaps you could come back at a later date and just fill us in on a little bit more. We were requested by another councillor to carry out a formal scrutiny to ascertain whether the report on the ex gratia payment was true to the former managing director, and if so, whether the CBC grant was used directly or indirectly or to backfill other funding so as to have made possible the ex gratia payment. Now, I feel that that's something that, until you've gone through the process that you're going through now, and until you've looked at all of the finances in detail, I don't wish to put words in your mouths, but I would imagine that you probably can't answer that at the moment. If you can, then that's fine. But otherwise, we'll leave that to another time. Would you be able to answer that at the moment?
Chair, I did anticipate that question, actually, and so I did a week or so when we agreed to come to the Scrutiny Committee, because it aggrieved me greatly that a public service organisation with huge public funding would spend a lot of money dealing with HR or personnel matters, however you want to describe them. Obviously, I was nothing to do with it. I wasn't here. I don't know the details of why those types of payments had to be made. But it did concern me that I heard the question in terms of, was there any funds from the CBC in particular used for that? That led me to undertake a quick review to look at the SLA between ourselves and to see whether or not elements had not been delivered because we used funds that had been given to us. As far as I can see, all of the things we agreed in the SLA were delivered, except a few things on the Equalities Action Plan, which I was quite concerned about. They're more to do with ways of working than the deliverables. Now, it is a huge budget that the gallery has, and it becomes one budget when they put things together. I will still look into it. I think you deserve that answer, but you have my sentiments about what happened there.
Thanks very much. I do appreciate that. A couple more questions for you. I understand there is a business plan that's currently being prepared. Do you have any end date for that, of when that will actually be ready and when we can have a look at it? And also the same for this year's budget?
Yeah, of course, Chair. We're currently undergoing an audit, which I am monitoring very carefully and liaising with the auditors. They only started this week. That means that they'll require their full 2 weeks to do their work, and then we'll require a couple of weeks to scrutinise their work ourselves, and a budget can be made from that. I'm very pleased, as I said earlier, that we will have elected member involvement, because the elected members who will join our board will, of course, have direct access to all of our cash flows, our management accounts and our budgets as well. And that will just be a normal everyday business as usual. Now, in terms of the business plan, we're currently, from the work that I've done with Anthony over the last 4 weeks, we're developing an action plan, applying for funds from the Arts Council in particular. And we have pulled a team together to put together a business plan for the next 2 years after this financial year. Of course, the way and the style that I've dealt with it is I've involved officers both from CBC and Essex County Council, so they are integral to my team in helping to write that plan. So they'll have access to it as I'm actually evolving that. And that was really the way I saw of keeping you involved, instead of giving you a draft every now and again, was to involve the officers from the county and the borough to actually help construct the business plan, the structure of it. I had 2 hours meeting with someone from the county today, for example, going through the structure and the contribution there. And from here, your Chief Operating Officer will actually be one of the editors of the business plan with me to ensure that when we create a new business plan for First Sight, we wrap around it the real issues of the borough to make what we do relevant. And so I'm not sure if I can say any more other than actually I've integrally involved members on the board and officers in writing the plan as well, so they'll have it as we evolve it together.
There's no timescale.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I am aiming to take a draft of the business plan to our trustees meeting on the 23rd of September, and I imagine by the end of that month it will be ready.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I add to that, Chair? Because the stakeholders have been meeting regularly, monthly. That's Essex County Council, Arts Council, and us for the last last 6-7 months. And the Arts Council, as you know, they rescinded their 3-year agreement with First Sight and made it a year, and so there's a transition plan and then a business plan that these two are spending all their waking hours and probably their sleeping hours as well working on to make sure that's right. And I think it's got to go for decision to Arts Council in November, is it? So that's a crucial date for First Sight. Now, the Arts Council, the meetings were very tense for a number of months, as you can imagine. The last one was a lot friendlier because we've got Norseman and Anthony in place, but they will continue. There's another one in September that I shall be attending. We're in a very delicate place. We're not out of the woods, and I've got every confidence in these guys, but those meetings will continue. But that Arts Council, I think it's their full council or executive board or whatever their structure is, will make a decision on First Sight. Now, they're hopeful, our regional people who we're speaking to are hopeful that this transition plan and business plan is absolutely crucial to them continuing to be funded by Arts Council, because, as I say, they give, £800,000 a year, and without that we would be in trouble. But all the signs are promising, and if it comes through in the way, as I say, Osman has said, the County Council and the Borough Council are assisting in that process of getting that transition plan and that business plan as good as we can to present to Arts Council.
Thank you. Councillor Lang, I've got a question for you, actually. You've been involved with First Sight, obviously, for quite a long time. And at some point it must have become obvious that they were struggling, but it was struggling badly. And you had responsibility for ensuring that the Colchester Borough Council grant was being used properly. When did it become obvious to you? When did you actually step in? And what were the first steps you took?
It's a good question. I think it was probably about a year ago. I think it's my 3rd year of having this portfolio that includes culture. It was such a secretive organisation to try and break into. We couldn't get their papers. Even the board weren't getting financial reports. The governance was appalling. And I don't mind saying that. I think they were all people of goodwill and good intentions, but they did not know how to run an organisation. Norseman does know how to run an organisation and turn it round. They were doing their best, but we found it really difficult to break in, and they wouldn't let us break in. That's why we didn't have anybody on the board. And whether it was defensiveness or not, we didn't appreciate the scale of the financial problems until about a year ago. And I pay tribute to Anne Hedges and our officers and the county's officers who, we had to take robust action. We are, without our funding, the Arts Council have said they won't fund First if the local authorities aren't going to. So we had to make it very clear to the First board that changes had to be made, finances had to be sorted out. The scale of the financial issues are astonishing, but are now being brought under control. And there are going to have to be painful changes at First Sight. And that happens when you're turning around an organisation. I've been involved in organisations that have had to be turned around. Norseman does it for a living. And we've got good people in Colchester who can assist with that too. But it was about a year ago, and it took me that long because everybody was saying, no, it's fine, it's going fine. And then they got the NPO money, the National Portfolio Organisation money, and it seemed it was and, I've as can be witnessed to here, I've spent sleepless nights worrying about the situation at First Sight because it was in a dreadful state. But yeah, about a year ago, I would say, Chair, that it finally realised that we needed changes in the management, changes on the board, and I think the cavalry have arrived just in time.
So what we say the lessons learned are from this, because there must have been at some point that you must have considered clawing back some of the grant, because, it's quite obvious from the funding agreement that we've got in front of us here that there's a lot of this that didn't happen. They haven't given us their accounts, they haven't done various bits, but there was never any mention of a clawback. I am the portfolio holder with the backing of my cabinet colleagues who've reduced the grant over the last 2 years because the financial position the council was in, so we had to make some savings somewhere, but we had to be shown to be getting value from money from our arts organisation. I think the Arts Centre and the Mercury could provide that in spades. So First Sight was still a bit of a gamble because we made that we've made a huge financial investment in First Sight, as the County Council, as the Arts Council, and we're not ready to give up on it. But we needed some, and so yes, we did make it clear to them that our money was dependent on them giving us certain information, so that we were confident that this organisation could continue to provide or begin to provide what the people of Colchester wanted it to provide. So there have been difficult, awkward conversations, both within the Cabinet and with partners and colleagues. And I think we were pretty close to probably having an empty building if the changes hadn't been made that had been made. And I think we were quite influential on Anthony's appointment. And I think that has been seen and welcomed by the vast majority of people in Colchester. If those changes hadn't happened, I think we'd be sitting there with a building that would be in mothballs. With these people now in charge of the organisation, I think we've got every chance of making it a success. As open and honest as I can be with the press present, I have to say. Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say I'm very impressed with the publicity in Energy and Vision. I get the weekly updates as well, and they're very good. But I really must take exception to the notion that fine art is only for the elite, for wealthy people. I think it's just wrong. I was in the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool 2 weeks ago. The traditional paintings were busy, the galleries were full, but they were comfortably full of people going around looking at them. The modern art, is empty. Now, we should have the opportunity to see modern art, because some of it is very good. But are we in the business of providing service to the arts or service to the residents of Colchester? If you keep saying you must learn about this, you really need to see this, you're not giving people what they want. And those people are the ones that are actually, in the end, paying for it through grants and everything else. There has to be a balance, and I think it has to be a balance towards what people like and feel comfortable with. You'll get people coming in. The notion of the kiss is wonderful. People love that because it makes them feel good. But not everybody wants to be challenged every 10 minutes and go home going, oh, I didn't like that very much. Yes, that's that. I also think that right from the outset, we have missed the opportunity to provide a space where people can see local art, not just modern local art, but traditional local art, regional stuff with a regional influence. East Anglia has produced some wonderful artists, and people love to see their work. Colchester has nowhere. I mean, we could hang some of the lovely stuff that's in the town hall for people to see. I think we're missing a huge opportunity to get people to feel proud of their region, of their town, and go out saying, God, that was good, God, that was clever, wasn't it? I know it sort of must seem very childish to arty people, but in truth it's what people want. And then they will go. And I don't want it to become a very expensive drop-in centre. I want people to really get something, children and adults, from the visit, because there's an awful lot of money being poured into it, and we should get something back for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to come back on that one, or should I go on to the...
Just to say it's all about opinion, isn't it? Because if that was the case, then the Mercury would put the panto on all year, because it fills up. But to enable them to put on some challenging stuff, they have to put on so it's a balance, and that's what I think we need at first sight, and I think that's what we're successfully doing at the moment.
Is there any vision of any permanent exhibition, or is it always going to be transitional?
We don't have I mean, that is, like the Wakefield and other places do have a permanent exhibition. I think there's an ambition to have a permanent collection, maybe. I'm only appointed at the end of April, so I can't speak so broadly for it as well. And I understand what you're saying, and it is balance, isn't it? So that when we have this big open exhibition that's going to be absolutely full of local people stuff, there will be someone that will come along and say, you spent all this money just on, putting and anybody can put stuff up, shouldn't you, And then when we have, I don't know, Martin Parr as a photographer later on in the year, there'll be someone saying, I can't get my photographs up here, etc. But there will also be, I mean, that was two very negative things, so that's lose-lose, but it will also be win-win, because we will have other people doing things, but it is balance. I think the balance has been wrong before now, but it's also having a grown-up conversation like we're having now about what's good, what's bad. When we do the open exhibition, by the way, we will have someone select 3 of their favourite open pieces, and they will then be put in the mosaic space or a separate space. We're going to try and get John Cooper Clarke or people, minor celebrities, or, maybe the editor of the local paper or something like that. But then that begins the discussion about what's good and what's bad, and that's what gives the open exhibition some integrity, I think, because I think you have to have integrity. But there we are.
I'm very pleased about the James dolls, by the way.
Oh, it's really good, yeah. It was in yesterday's. I think he's a lovely man, brilliant.
I must admit, I would, at the risk of putting my neck on the line, I would suggest that the permanent exhibition is actually the building itself. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. Councillor Hardy, and then Councillor Hogg, and then Councillor Hayes.
Thank you. I think what happens teaches us it's got to change, and you're the two guys to be leading us, and aren't we lucky? the building is admired by loads of people, and it's the inside that needs pepping up. So without having a limited vision, which that notion of contemporary put upon us all, there's so much that could be done. And I'd like to come up with some suggestions, if you don't mind. I'll be as quick as I can with my suggestions. And the idea of them is that they answer the footfall numbers that you need, that we would like to see, and they meet education and creativity requirements. The first thing I'd like to talk about is the bit that residents and people who talk to councillors have said to me. I think you should alter the cafe. You should stay away from the man that everybody uses to design their eating houses in Colchester. It's too samey. You could run a cafe competition, and you could do it with the schools here in Colchester. For lots of reasons. One thing is that when you've got the kids, you've got their mums, you've got their dads, you've got their grands, you've got their aunts, their uncles, their cousins, the whole caboodle. They're very easy to get at because they're on one site, all their emails are there, and you can do your poster saying this cafe competition, and you would be asking the children to plan to plan the cafe. I would suggest that you could have it shades of silver, shades of purple.
Can I just
have it as the tundra?
I'm terribly sorry. I'm going to quite rudely interrupt here. Can I please suggest? I would like to suggest that the call goes out to all members. That any suggestions that anybody has, if we can send them in to Councillor Young and to the two gentlemen here, if we can collate them all together, I think that would be because then they've got them all in black and white, and they can sit there and take time and look at them, and I think that would actually be a lot more helpful. But it's really useful to actually bring that up and to bring up the suggestions. So if that's something that we can take away from this today, to invite all councillors to do that, to put their suggestions forward. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. Councillor Hogg?
Oh, I was afraid to speak, Madam Chairman, after that. Anthony has visited me at the Oak Tree Centre and had a wander around and what we're doing there on a very, very small scale. And I hope that your vision, your plans will include community centres, community hubs and so on as part of that overall picture. As you're aware, I'm not the only one around here that represents quite a fairly diverse ward. And as far as the bottom line, as far as representing my ward and the people of Colchester is first sight value for money. And it's quite obviously not been value for money. And we've had negativity on negativity on negativity. I want to be able to have a conversation with the people in my ward saying this is value for money. And you've come here this evening as an absolute breath of fresh air with your vision as on a way forward. And what I would like to thank you for is actually putting forward a vision that is going to be relevant to little Johnny at Willowbrook School and to his auntie and his grandma at the same time. This, I know it's an overused expression, cradle to the grave, but I mean, you're going to appeal to that, and I think that's absolutely wonderful. And making it relevant as well as value for money for the people of Colchester. We sit here in judgment, in scrutiny on where we're going, and we all, I'm sure we're all pushing this in the right direction, and we all very much want you to succeed. But we all know the flip side of that is disaster. It's not going to go there. We're absolutely convinced it isn't. So I'd like to thank you for making it relevant to the people that I represent. Keep going in that direction. And you've been a great double act tonight. I would leave you with, you could do an exhibition in double acts. Could be Morecambe and Wise, could be Stalin and Roosevelt, it could be Churchill and Hitler, it could be anybody you wanted. But it's there's an idea you could take forward. But I'd like to thank you for coming here this evening and making it worthwhile us sitting here for 3.5 hours listening to your not yet to your vision. So thank you very much for that, and please keep up the good work.
Thank you, Councillor Hough. Sorry, could you just knock your microphone off, please? Thank you. Councillor Hayes, was it a... did you have a question on the scrutiny side of this item, please?
I think so, yes. I am the councillor for the ward in which First Sight is. And it's a charity. The organisation that runs it is a charity, and I think that openness has been lacking, and openness is essential in order to reassure people. There are myths that circulate about First Sight and about the finances, and no doubt there are truths which we need to see in the full, glare of daylight. So thank you for having the audit and for seeing to all of that, Mr. Rashid. I'm also would like to thank you for you as a board for appointing, I think, 2 councillors, is it? I proposed the amendment at the full council meeting suggesting that, because it seemed to me an obvious way to reassure people again that the council was aware of what was going on and so forth. But it seems to me also, sorry, to get to my question in a minute, I also, please don't go away and think that various councillors have expressed their views on what should be and what shouldn't be there. There is a diversity of communities in Colchester, and one person's Rodan is another person's poison. So please just do what you think's right. And if it's urinals, well, there are 2 urinals on the outside of the waiting room, which make very good plant pots. So it's what you do with it that matters, isn't it? But what the council also, I feel, has an obligation to do what it can to help, and it is an area of the town which is has been derelict and is now getting better. And we have the new hotel, which was a £15 million investment, which I'm quite sure would never have happened if First Sight hadn't been there. We've also, I believe, got the 3-screen Curzon Cinema coming eventually. And in order to ensure that they and others come, the council has got to make that area of the town interesting and not look derelict. And I also think that the county council needs to be helpful with signposting, because a number of people have said, including the person for whom I'm substituting, Councillor Peter Higgins, have repeatedly raised the question of why are there not decent signposts so you can actually find the wonderful building we have. So my question is, how can the council help to vitalise the open space around First Sight, maybe by having, I don't know, living statues and the sort of things they do on the South Bank? I mean, what do we need to do to help you?
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. I've been very encouraged in the 4 weeks that I've been here, the support from the Borough Council and the County Council, to be honest. I've gone round, and I think partly my own local government background, vision, understanding the role of elected members and how you need to deliver things, it's gone down very well. I've been really overwhelmed because I was told that nobody got on with each other, and I was quite surprised when I came that the officers were speaking to me quite openly about how they'd like to help with the signage and how they'd like to help with the outside regeneration and how putting together a small group to do that. So I personally have not met any of the resistance that people have actually actually talked about personally. Maybe I'm approaching things slightly differently, being a Yorkshireman, open, candid and to the point. But I think the council's doing the right things. We're trying to respond to the needs of the council in terms of challenging us and asking for transparency. I hear what has been said about the past, but I'm a different person. My whole approach is completely different. And so I think only time will tell how we get on together. We understand, and I've been briefed on the regeneration projects that the borough has got for around the area. I know it will take time, but we want to play our part in helping also around the curtilage. And the conversations in a very short period of time have been positive, to be honest.
I don't want Councillor Hayes to go around falsely thinking there's going to be two borough councillors on the board. It's going to be me from the Borough Council and Councillor Hurst from the County Council on the board of First Sight. So there will be two councillors, one from Essex and one from... you haven't responded or reacted to... I was a bit concerned about Nosman's idea about Gold Square because that's our land. But if there doesn't seem to be any negative reaction to that, if you want to call it that and you think it will help, then I guess... you would say if you objected. I wasn't sure, but I'm not hearing any negative reaction to that. That might work, that might help, and I'm sure there's lots more we can do with the other arts organisations that Anne is so well connected with in the town to get people performing and doing stuff in that area too. I think the council, we would all want to do what we can to reinvigorate that area and make sure that people are attracted there and then to go into the building.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. OK, I think we need to wrap that one up. I would like to invite you back, if that's OK.
Next week.
If the new trustee structure will be in place in October, and I would imagine by that time you would probably have the business plan in place as well and the budget. And I was wondering whether if we should, if the panel would like to invite them to come back in October to just update us, because I do think this is, I think this is something that needs keeping quite a close eye on. And do you think that you would be in a position in October to give us that kind of information? I'm getting officers looking at me very nervously at the moment.
Yeah, I'm always happy to come to the council building, but if we're ready, I'm not so sure you'll get value out of where we are.
I've been told it may have to be December.
As you saw, Mrs Hedges approached this. The Arts Council decision in November. When are your meetings?
We have 8th of December.
It's no good coming if it's not productive, is it?
No, not at all. 8th of December, we have...
What's the next one?
26th of January.
That might be better, I think, Chair. To be honest, if you want something productive and you can see the direction in which we're going, I think I'm looking at Nosman and that the 26th of January might well be you get more out of it.
OK. I just think this is something that we do have to keep an eye on, and we can't let it run away with us. And we are scrutinising on behalf of residents, and I think they need to know that they are getting good value for money. I think I'm not alone in saying we do wish to support the revival of First Sight, and I'm very pleased with what I've heard tonight. I'm reassured that we have the right people in place now to take that forward. But we must also be aware that this is public money and it must be spent prudently and for the public benefit. So I think as long as we keep an eye on that as well, then I think we could really go forward and have something amazing now for Colchester. I would like to thank you for coming along and having a bit of a grilling from us. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. And I do appreciate your openness and candidness as well. It's very much appreciated and quite refreshing. So thank you very much. Thank you both very much for coming.
Here. Thank you very much.
There's very small amounts left. It's entirely up to you. We've got... what are we looking at now? We've got the SPAP and we've got the staff survey. The staff survey, actually, I would like a lot more information on, and I think we could do a lot better piece of scrutiny on it with more information, so I'm quite happy to put that one back. Is there anyone here specifically for it? Jess, sorry. Sorry.
Oh, it's wasted all evening.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jess.
Chair, it's about concentration, isn't it? I think that if we're planning to schedule an October meeting, then surely we could put those together for that one and do the air pollution one at the same time.
Yeah. Do we need to do the strategic plan, action plan tonight? Is that something that actually needs to be done? I mean, we've virtually gone over that anyway when we did the last one. Yeah. So, shall we just? Well, I was going to say quickly do that item, but. Yes, we do have to look at the strategic plan, action plan, because it's going to cabinet on 2nd of September. So, having been through the previous one, I think we've sort of covered most things. But we just need to. I need to give everybody a chance to comment on it if they would like to, and to ask any questions if they would like to. If there are no questions, then we are just asked to. Review and comment on and consider whether it's sufficiently realistic and ambitious. As I say, I do think most of it has been covered, but if anybody does have any questions, then I'm sure Matt would answer them. Do we have questions on it, or would you be content to review it and note it as seen?
Content to note?
No.
Okay, Mr. Sterling, did you have some covering remarks that you wanted to make on this particular item? Just well, I don't want to preempt us nodding it through, but...
I will be very brief. Really only to say this is the new... Cabinet adopted a new, or Council adopted a new strategic plan in February. You'll see in the draft action plan attached to the report that the 4 themes of the new strategic plan, vibrant, prosperous, thriving and welcoming, is how we've divided the action plan. At that time in February, Cabinet asked officers to start to prepare an action plan to deliver the strategic plan. That's what we've got here. These have been gathered from each of the services of the Council. They also reflect Cabinet's priority actions for this year. And back in June, we held a masterclass of officers, managers and team leaders throughout the Council to come up with more ambitious projects. And these are captured here as well. And I think that's really all I need to say.
Thank you. I'm so sorry we're rushing you as well. Does anybody have any comments or questions? No, they don't. Councillor Hayes.
Page 100, just the seek 20% of new homes on qualifying sites to be affordable. I mean, it used to be more, didn't it? It used to be a higher percentage. I just wonder why it's less. Is this sort of being forced upon us? Because my preference would be for there to be, obviously, to be more affordable homes.
Yeah, I think 20% is a target because I think this is what we think is doable in the current climate. And as Councillor Young said in the previous item, that target has been set before the budget this year. So even that might become tougher, but I think this is what we think is achievable this year. I think there was a time when it was a higher percentage, but we weren't achieving it very often. So this, I think, is seen to be a target we've got a realistic chance of delivering.
Thank you. Councillor Cope, did you...
My problem is that I can see discussion about all of these bullet points, and I don't think we've got time.
OK, well, our problem is that this has to go to Cabinet. This has been to full council before, isn't it? And has been fully discussed there. However,
Matt, can I just check the deadline with you on this one in terms of being ready?
So this is going to the Cabinet meeting that's happening on the 2nd of September, for which I believe papers are needed, I think, at the end of this week or next week. In fact, Jonathan would know better than me.
I think it might be tomorrow afternoon, actually.
Said this week.
I would suggest that if anybody would like to leave now, then they can, but I would suggest that anybody that does want to discuss this item, we really need to get it done now. How many do we need to remain quorate?
It'd be 5.
5, okay. That I'm suggesting... Councillor Harrington, you may be excused after your daughter. I am anticipating no more than 20 minutes. But then, having said that, it depends. People might decide to discuss for longer. If anybody else would like to leave, they may. But if anybody would like to stay and discuss the item, then we shall. Purely because of the time constraints. So, Councillor Cope, did you have a question?
No, it's a general observation. It seemed to be that each bullet point struck me as being potentially something that we could argue and talk about, and therefore were we going to have time? Don't pin me down to mentioning each one in turn. Chair, can I seize on one then? You want me to make a point? It's okay.
Okay, we just need to put through the approval this evening, and there will be an opportunity, or there could be an opportunity to discuss it at a later date and then feed in through Cabinet that way. So, yeah, this is the long-term plan, so it will be coming back time and time. So maybe time is to discuss it fully at a different time. So, but we still do need to just agree that we have maybe changed the wording and just say that we have seen it, and we will be maybe commenting on it at a later date fully. But we need to put it through for Cabinet for next week.
Happy to propose that, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Hayes, did you?
I just wanted to make one comment of detail, if you don't mind, and I know it's late, but I mean, this is an incredibly important document, actually. And it was just that, well, I was only sort of drafted in at a late stage to be a sub this evening, and I haven't studied it in full, but I just thought it doesn't actually say anything about things like our waste and recycling strategy. It just says work with the third sector, page 101, to deliver the environmental sustainability strategy. And I felt that it should say more about our long-term objective of being, we used to say, the cleanest and greenest borough. And that's the point I want to make.
Thank you. I think we can certainly take that forward when we discuss it fully. Councillor Young has proposed that we nod this through. Is everyone else happy to do that? Take it. That comment has been noted, yes, and it will be discussed fully at a further meeting.
Happy to go with that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. In that case, that has been duly noted. Thank you very much, Matt. I would suggest that the staff survey goes forward to the October meeting, and the review of last year's scrutiny goes perhaps to the 15th of September, because we could just have that as a brief item in front of, before the 15th September.
15th of September, can I give my apologies? I'll have to have a sub. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you all for being so patient. Thank you.